Good morning, North Penn High School. I'm Eric Jessberger, and welcome back to coverage of the 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention right here at North Penn High School. I'm Eric Jessberger. I'll be your host today, and looking over some things. We have live coverage all day going on right here in the studio, also down on the floor in the auditorium, where we'll have interviews and many events going on throughout today's 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention. Over the course of today, student delegates from all U.S. states and territories will debate the platform of the Democratic Party and select a candidate for their presidential nominee of the party. Since 1976, North Penn High School has been holding simulated conventions ranging from the Democratic and Republican Party each 4 years, altering between each of the political parties. This year, students decided to replicate the Democratic Party that will best reflect a platform that represents their stance on major issues facing the 2020 Democratic and United States. This is how coverage will work today. We have North Penn television correspondents here in the studio and down on the floor, ready to conduct interviews and give you an inside look to today's festivities. Kicking off, we have Skylar Simpson and Spencer Halval down on the floor in the auditorium, where they'll be looking over some of the things going on today down on the floor, where the buzz will be buzzing. Spencer and Skylar, what's the schedule looking like today?
Thanks, Eric. We just got finished with the Pledge of Allegiance and National Anthem and the presentation of the colors. Right now, we have the opening remarks about to be done. Mr. Haley's talking to the whole group of students. You got a full crowd in the auditorium, all the flags of each of the states. It looks like we're going to have a good time down here. I'm down here with my correspondent, Skylar Simpson, and we're going to be down here all day on the floor.
All right, looking forward to it. We'll definitely get back to the schedule in just a little bit once the opening remarks get out of the way, and definitely great. Also, National Anthem being conducted there beforehand. We also have some members in the studio, the correspondents. Kicking off, we have Rachel Allmark over here on set, ready to conduct interviews throughout the day. We'll have some public speakers, as long as students perhaps stopping in to talk about some of the buzz going down there on the floor, give you another inside look. Rachel, what are some of the expectations you have for today's convention?
I'm definitely looking forward to the results of the students' and advisors' hard work, because I know at least my government teacher has been talking about this since the second day of school. From me, you can expect interviews from keynote speakers and chair people. So that's all I have. Throwing it back to the desk, Eric.
Thanks, Rachel. Looking forward to some of that stuff unfolding throughout the day, especially as some of the major topics get tackled. Speaking of some of the major topics, we also have Sophie Collins here in the studio as well. She'll be rolling out of here in just a moment, heading down to the floor. She'll be running around, catching some interviews, and also picking up on some of the biggest conversation pieces throughout the day. Sophie, thanks for joining us today. Again, what are you expecting here in the 2020 convention?
Thanks, Eric. So like you said, I'll be in the auditorium down where all the action is. I'll be talking to students about their thoughts on the convention and what they think might happen. So good luck to all participating. I'm going to head down there now, so sending it back to you.
All right, Sophie, look forward to seeing you throughout the day. Now we're going to throw it down to the floor where Mr. Pete Nicholson, the mayor of North Penn, is getting ready to kick off our festivities. Let's take a look.
An unpredictable, highly important, real-world situation. That's what we all strive for in education. Today's simulated convention will give you a behind-the-scenes look at what you may see on TV this upcoming summer, with the hopes that it will make you a better, more informed citizen beyond the walls of North Penn High School. As the principal, I do need to share a few housekeeping items with you. As Mr. Haley said, if you haven't checked in with your first period teacher, please do so. And with this many students in the auditorium for the entire day, it is imperative that you all use and take the freedom and responsibility you've been given today seriously. While we want this day to be educational and fun, it is important that you follow all directions and make sure you sign in and out of the auditorium throughout the day. We need to know where you are so we can ensure that everyone is safe and the rest of the high school can run in an orderly fashion. Please listen and respond with respect to the speakers, various staff members, guests, and most importantly, respond with respect to each other. I hope today is a day that you will look back on fondly long after you have left the walls of North Penn. Once again, welcome to Tom Ensign, and have a great day. Now, please help me welcome North Penn High School senior, Alexis Bamford.
Hi everyone, thank you so much, Mr. Nicholson. Good morning, North Penn. My name is Alexis Bamford, and I, along with Rachel Rubens and Catherine Cavanaugh, am so proud to be co-chairing today's mock convention. This morning, I'm excited to welcome State Senator Maria Collette from Pennsylvania's 12th Senatorial District. The daughter of immigrants, Senator Collette started her education at the University of Maryland, where she earned a bachelor's degree in English literature. Continuing on to law school at Rutgers, the senator graduated and began her legal career representing victims of child abuse. She then earned a nursing degree from Drexel University and worked in a healthcare field, caring for children, the elderly, and trauma patients. Later, she became a nurse educator, teaching other nurses how to understand Medicaid programs. After being elected to the Pennsylvania State Senate in 2018, Senator Collette prioritized clean water in her district, gender equality, and school safety. She sits on the following committees: Aging and Youth, of which she is the minority chair, Appropriations, Consumer Protections and Professional Licensure, Judiciary, State Government, and Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness. On behalf of our convention, I'd like to thank Senator Collette for her service to our state and for taking the time to speak with us today. Now, please give a North Penn welcome to Senator Maria Collette.
Well, good morning, North Penn. So thank you so much to Mr. Haley and to Alexis and Rachel for inviting me to join you as you celebrate our democratic process and undertake your convention today. I am truly honored to be here. As Alexis said, my name is Senator Maria Collette, and I represent Pennsylvania's 12th senatorial district. That includes portions of Bucks and Montgomery counties in our state legislature in Harrisburg. I ran for office for the first time in 2018 as a Democrat for this seat, and I am thrilled, that the voters put their faith in me to become their voice in our state capitol. I am honored to serve them and you in our capital and to have the opportunity to share my experiences with all of you today. Before I was elected to the Senate, I knew I wanted to make a career out of helping people and making a positive impact in my community. After law school, I worked as a deputy attorney general in New Jersey, and I represented the interests of children that were victimized by abuse and neglect, and went back to school to become a registered nurse so that I could make a more personal and direct impact on the quality of people's lives. During all that time, I, like most people, was not too engaged in our political process, beyond reading the news and voting in elections. The 2016 election changed that for me. The morning after the election, I was pacing around in my kitchen, and I was wondering what our future would hold. My husband came in, he saw me pacing around frantically, and he said, "Pull it together. This is your life now. Find a way to make it better." So, I did. I decided to get involved in the political process in a way I had never before considered. The same calling that led me into the law and nursing led me here. I realized that if I wanted to keep making a difference in people's lives, I couldn't sit on the political sidelines anymore. I started close to home, just like you all are. I met with my local Democratic committee people and asked how I could help. 2017 was a local election year. We were voting for local and county races, not state and federal. So I educated myself about the issues in my township, my school district, and my county. I learned who the current electeds were and what they stood for, and I met their challengers. I realized what an undertaking it is to run for local office and the impact that the people we elect have on our day-to-day lives, from the textbooks my son reads as a second grader, to the stop signs that keep our roads safe, to the way our tax dollars are spent. This was a great place for me to get politically active and make a real difference. I volunteered and became the campaign manager for 3 candidates running in my township's municipal elections, and I had never done anything like that before. As my candidates and I talked with people in coffee shops, in our neighborhoods, and at their front doors, we could sense a growing frustration that there weren't enough regular people in government, people like us, people who juggle families, student loan debt, demanding jobs, and medical crises. People who know what it's like to struggle and live in the real world. Our communities were taking a critical look at the people who were asking for their votes to ensure that they shared their values and that they would behave in a way that we could all be proud of. I was so excited to help get my candidates and other local candidates elected, and I was ready to do more. That's when I learned that there still wasn't a Democratic candidate running for the state Senate in my district. Rumor had it that the senator who'd held this seat for 40 years was retiring, and that his son was planning to take his place. He and his supporters thought it would be a slam dunk for them. But I knew from the year that I'd spent talking to members of my community that there was a real desire for new voices. People were sick and tired of politics as usual. I had never planned on running for office myself. I just wanted to keep making a difference and help improve my community. But I also knew that I had a lot more that I could bring to the table. So again, I stepped up, and I'm here speaking with you today as your state senator because I took that first step, and I got engaged in my local political party, because I listened along the way to the members of my community, and because the voters trusted that I understood their needs and their values, and that I would work to protect them in Harrisburg. As a candidate, I ran on a few key issues: education, healthcare, clean water, increasing the minimum wage. And while I have strong views and opinions on many other issues, these seemed to rise to the top because they reflected my party's values, my own specific priorities, and the specific needs of my district. Political parties play a big role in the direction of our democracy. They provide a format for the party's members to define a series of goals and objectives based on shared values of the role of government in our society, and they provide standards for candidates to define themselves within the party. Political parties ensure that voters have a general set of expectations about the ideals their party's candidates stand for and what voting for those candidates will mean for their own lives. For example, in the Democratic Party, there is a large focus on improving the affordability of health care, on protecting our climate for future generations, and on addressing the student loan debt crisis. During a state or national party convention, delegates from the respective parties meet to endorse candidates and define their platform. These same committee people who represent their neighborhoods cover the polls on election day and find candidates to run for local office, then have a say on behalf of themselves and their neighbors in which candidates get endorsed at the state and federal level. At the federal level, they do so by dividing into subgroups devoted to proposing value statements on a specific topic they'll call a plank in their platform. These topics can range from education to immigration, combating terrorism, and social security. Each party decides how many topics and planks it will include. In 2016, the Democratic Party put together a platform that identified 13 overarching goals with 93 individual planks for candidates to run on. The Republican Party's platform included 6 umbrella goals with 88 planks. The platform process is vital to the identity of the party as it allows for each faction of the party to have their voices heard throughout the policymaking process. In 2016, it allowed Bernie Sanders supporters to influence the party platform that Hillary Clinton would ultimately run on. The process broadens the political tent to ensure that the nominees of the party are accountable to and reflective of the party that nominates them. State and local parties' platforms can be guided by the national party, but the process of crafting them is often more flexible, and they also need to address state and local issues such as property taxes, roads, conservation, and development. As a candidate, I looked to my party's platform and then tailored them to the values and needs of my district, as communicated to me by all of the voters with whom I talked. So, for example, the broader goal of the Democratic Party might be to protect the environment. But here, in my district, my more specific goal and message was that we need to take more action to address the PFAS water contamination crisis around the former Willow Grove and Warminster military bases. While members of a given party typically agree on its core goals and principles, they often differ on how we can best tackle those issues and achieve those goals. Candidates within a party, too, will differ on those things, as I'm sure you're seeing as you watch the presidential debates. That's why the parties hold primaries to pick their nominees. It's crucial that we ask questions of candidates that can demonstrate how they would either be in step with their party or differ from it, how they would go about achieving their goals, and how they would go about winning the general election. And then we get to decide for ourselves if the person asking for our support and vote aligns with our own goals, principles, and values. While I was fortunate not to have a primary candidate challenger in 2018, many of the other local races did. During primaries, candidates vied for party endorsement, meaning the opportunity to be the candidate that the local party members throw their support and effort behind, as well as the one that they urge voters at the polls to vote for. By convincing the local committees that they understand the issues, that they have experience, and that they plan to deliver on them, and that they were more likely to win the general election. While local party support is less important to presidential candidates, it can make all the difference in state and local races. That's why what you are engaging in today is so important. You are practicing one of the fundamental aspects of our American life: the right to organize and to define for yourselves what values are important to you as you seek to improve our imperfect union. I urge you all to commit to yourselves that you will vote in every election in which you have the opportunity to participate. We are all depending on you because you are the future leaders and voices of our nation. Representing the interests of the public in their government is one of the greatest privileges. The calling to public service may be already flowing and growing within you, and undoubtedly, we could be sitting in the presence of future elected officials today. But you don't have to run for office to play an important role, and I hope that my story convinced you that anyone can contribute to making their community a better place to live, work, and play. Thank you again for having me, and good luck today. I'm looking forward to hearing the platforms that you develop and how you'll go about improving our world. And as your elected representative, I will be sure to take them into consideration as I speak for you and the rest of our community in Harrisburg. The strength of our democracy and the strength of our republic is only equal to the strength of our citizens. As I stand here among you today, I have never been more confident that our United States of America has a strong future.
All right, good morning, North Penn. My name is Mr. Haley. I'm a social studies teacher here at North Penn High School. I've been here 20 years at this point. And you're probably wondering this question. Why am I here? Why are we doing this? The reality is that this program has been run for over 40 years, and it started with another social studies teacher. It was his brainchild, and he, like me, was very interested in developing students that were ready to be active participants in our political system. That doesn't mean you all have to run for office, but it means you have to be aware of issues, you have to be you want to vote, and you want to be an informed voter. That gentleman is in the back of the auditorium. His name is Mr. Finnemeyer. Can we all give Mr. Finnemeyer a big hand? He's waving in the back. So the reality of this program is that we want to give you an opportunity to put the textbooks down for a day. It is very important that you learn algebra, calculus, biology, chemistry, physics, learn how to write a coherent paragraph, learn how to communicate in writing, learn to speak another language, learn nanotechnology and all that stuff over in HPOD that I don't understand. These are all valuable skills that will open a lot of doors for you in the future. But there is another goal that education has, and that is to send students out of high school into the adult world ready to be active participants in our political system. Apathy is an ugly word, but it is a unfortunately, very common word in American politics. So we're giving you a chance today to put the textbooks down and actually engage in politics. All right, so that's the reason why you're here. Like a teacher, there's always, and the goal is not to turn you into a Democrat. I'll get into that in a minute. But these are some of the objectives that we have from today. To put it simply, we just want you to think about issues, understand the issue, think about what you think the government should be doing with those issues. So the morning is going to be devoted to talking about issues. And then secondly, to teach you how to think about who's electable, who would best represent you in American politics. Now, in a perfect world, we could do 2 conventions, and we could have students role-play Democrats in a Democratic convention, and then students role-play Republicans in a Republican convention. But there isn't enough time to do that in the school year. So every 4 years, we pick a political party, and we make that party the guide for our convention. We could have very easily picked a Republican convention this year, but our tradition has always been pick the party that doesn't control the White House. If we had picked a Republican convention this year, there'd be no mystery. We'd be done nominating a candidate in 10 minutes. It's going to be Donald Trump. There's no mystery. There's no field of candidates running against him. He's going to get the Republican nomination. So we picked the Democratic side because, frankly, it's chaos. Started out with like 25 different people wanting the nomination. We're down to 9 or 10 at this point that have still stayed in the race. So it gives you more options to look at, to evaluate, and decide who you think would best lead the Democratic Party moving forward. Our goal is not to make you Democrats. Our goal is to help you identify issues, think about issues, and learn how to evaluate candidates. All right? So these are the students that jumped on board with me at the end of last year and in September of this year. These are the students who made this all happen. They have been meeting and working together on publicity, on identifying speakers like Senator Collette, identifying issues in the platform, writing summaries of that platform for you, identifying the candidates, creating the bios. They've done a lot of work. It's not part of a class. It's not for a grade. They did it because they want to help. All right, so can I get a round of applause for my student leaders? And then every political convention also has security guards, Secret Service protection to ensure that the convention goes off without a hitch. I'd like to give a big thank you to Chief Sullivan and the JROTC program. Their students have volunteered to be our Secret Service agents, so you'll see them walking around in dark suits, white shirts, sunglasses, earbuds in. They're working security for the convention. All right? So that's that person you see walking around. Here's the procedures. Mr. Nicholson mentioned it at the beginning. This is a An in-school field trip, if you need to use the bathroom, you exit through the back, you go to the bathroom, you come back in. All right, we're not going to have you signing in and out to go to the bathroom. There'll be 100 people at the table signing in and out every 10 minutes. So be an adult, be mature. If you have to go to the bathroom, quietly get up, exit through the back, go across the hall, come back. If you need to leave the room for another reason, all right, if you are having an issue, you need to find your specific teacher or another teacher and let them know what's going on. There's a sign-out table over to my left in the middle. All right, you will go up to the table, give them your name. They will sign you out.
And a great look there at Mr. Haley, kind of talking about the rules and the objectives so far today. Also, we got to hear great words from Pennsylvania State Senator Maria Collette talking about her objectives on the day, and also a story about how she got into a role and how amazing this convention is. We have her now in the studio ready to take a look. Rachel Allmark, take it away.
Yes, I'm here with Senator Collette. I just had a couple questions for you. You talked about your healthcare experience a lot in your speech, so how did that shape your priorities?
Well, first, Rachel, thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be here today on, what is really just a most exciting day. And, being a healthcare provider, I had the opportunity, I worked in so many different settings. I worked in home health care, I worked in long-term care with aging populations, and I worked in trauma care where people really didn't expect to find themselves in the hospital. And when you see people in the spectrum of their lives facing these challenges, you really do get a feel for what it's going to take for them to have support so that they can get back to living the best quality of life that they can live. That was always my goal as a nurse, and it's my goal as a legislator as well.
Also, you talked about the different Democratic broad priorities, but then the local, more specific priorities. How are you helping to achieve those?
So I've introduced legislation that is really sort of tailored to the district, things that are going to help small businesses, things that will help with road infrastructure, and most importantly, from what I hear and what I know, the water crisis. I've introduced legislation to hopefully start to remediate and alleviate the problems that we're having. Thankfully, we have clean, safe water to drink, but we still have groundwater runoff that's contaminated, and we need to do something about that. We've got to hold our federal government accountable, but in the interim, we can do things here in the Commonwealth that are going to make those problems better for the people that live here until the federal government sort of gets its act together and helps us out.
Lastly, why do you think this is important to have at a high school, a simulated convention?
Well, I think you guys are just at the perfect age, right? You're getting ready. Some of you have turned 18. Some of you are getting ready to turn 18, where you'll become most involved in our political process with your opportunities to vote. So it's really important to understand the mechanics of everything. How do we get candidates? What do they stand for? How do I know that the candidate I'm voting for that has this party affiliation actually supports the ideals and values of me and my community? So getting to understand this and getting to practice it at a really hands-on level and get the nuts and bolts of it is going to serve you so well as you go into your futures. And you can educate your friends and family who didn't get a chance to participate in a simulated convention. You can tell them, hey, this is why this is so important. This is how we choose who the leaders are going to be in our government. And we have leaders in every aspect of our lives, but government is a place where the impact of it is felt nationally, locally, internationally. So we need to make sure that we have good people that are speaking to the values and ideals that we hold dear as they represent us.
That's awesome. Yep, that's all we have for our interview with Senator Collette. Thank you, and we're sending it back to the desk.
All right, thank you, Rachel, and thank you very much for joining us here in the studio and overall today at the convention. Pennsylvania Senator Maria Collette, thank you. And great words there. You talk about locally and nationally some of the issues that you look to tackle and the objectives and the goals you have every day. So thank you very much for joining us today and letting us pick your brain a little bit about some of the objectives and getting to hear from you about overall the convention and what it means locally, like a school here, high school here at North Penn. All right, now transitioning back over to the floor, we're going to check in with Spencer Halbaugh and Skylar Simpson, where they're on standby. They're continuing to listen into some of the objectives, goals, and rules Mr. Haley has been discussing plenty throughout the day. And this morning, Spencer and Skylar, what's going on down there now? And give us an update. What's been the discussion?
Thanks, Eric. So basically, Mr. Haley gave some opening remarks about some general rules and regulations, but also the importance of getting involved and the importance in general of this delegation. All the students are seeming engaged, interested, and excited. And right now on the stage, we have Rachel Rubens, chairperson, talking about more of the same thing, just the importance of the delegation, politics, and how you can get involved in your community.
Talking to your representatives, or even simply staying up to date on current events. It all matters. The best part is that you can affect change no matter your status in America. Before women or people of color had the right to vote, they were out on the street using protest and civil disobedience to eventually gain suffrage. Although getting involved in politics might seem scary and make you feel uncomfortable, you must remember that discomfort is what brings about change. You can even get involved right here at North Penn High School. We have both a Republicans Club and a Democrats Club, which offer opportunities to meet local officials and volunteer for causes. These clubs are a great resource to ask questions and figure out what you believe. And if you want to learn more about political issues, there is a political activism club as well. They pick topics for each week to debate and learn from each other. And always in the front office, there are voter registration forms. We also do voter registration drives throughout the year, or even a simple Google search of register to vote in Pennsylvania, and you can register online. Remember, there are elections every year, not only the presidential year. Local government impacts a majority of aspects of your everyday life, and then in this way, you have a higher chance of even making an impact. Of course, if you have any questions, you can talk to any of the government teachers, and they would love to help you out. Or you could always come up to me or one of my amazing co-chairs, and we'd love to help you figure out a way that you can help out. At the end of the day, some of us love our president and some of us don't. We are living at a time of division. The only way to combat this polarization is to listen to each other. The beautiful thing is that we are all allowed to voice our opinion. You have a voice. Why not use it? And now I'd like to pass this along to Alexis Bamford, one of my amazing co-chairs. Good morning, North Penn. I'd like to first thank my wonderful, amazing co-chairs, Rachel Rubens and Catherine Kavanaugh, for being smart and inspiring to work with, as well as some of my closest friends. So thank you, guys. Another huge thank you goes out to Mr. Haley for planning and organizing all of this, from the podcast to the delegations to literally everything here, as well as all the social studies teachers for working so hard to prepare us for today. Thank you to all the local politicians and media who took time out of their busy schedules to be with us today. And thank you to Mr. Nicholson, Ms. Andre, the administration, NPTV, and the facility staff for making this possible. And one final thank you to you guys, the delegates, for keeping an open mind. As Mr. Haley said before, the goal is not to make you all Democrats, but to help you start to understand what our country's dealing with. If you feel overwhelmed, like you're not quite sure what you're doing, that's fine. There are 14 people running for president. Trust me, the Democratic Party doesn't know what it's doing either. These issues are really complicated, and my co-chairs, our teachers, and just about everybody in this room is here to help you. If we can all survive bio and geometry, we can handle this. We're going to talk about climate change because we're all breathing the same air, and we want to be able to do so for centuries to come. We're going to talk about immigration because all of our families were immigrants at some point, and we need to deal with the practice that created our country and keeps it going. We're going to talk about healthcare because when people get sick, we need to make sure there's a way for them to get better. We're going to talk about voting because if we're going to run this country, we have a moral responsibility to make sure we're doing it fairly. We're going to talk about student debt because we are students and we don't want to spend the rest of our lives in debt. And we're going to talk about foreign policy because we Americans are not the only ones who matter, but also because we have a tremendous capacity to show the world what freedom and leadership look like if you do it right. I'm not going to lie, politics is hard. It's messy. It's really frustrating to put yourself out there for everyone to see and then think about that you're possibly going to get attacked on Twitter. But what I want you to understand is that it's worth it. The key is finding out what makes it worth it to you. I've been following politics for almost 5 years now, and like many professionals in politics today, I too can talk about Congress with a pretty concerning level of cynicism. But for every person who got in the game to lie or cheat or make money, There are 100 more who are actually in it to change people's lives. And I know that because we have some of those people here today, and some of them are going to stop in a little bit later. So next time you're feeling discouraged by the anger on your TV screen, turn off the news and think about how Senator Collette, after diving headfirst into both nursing and law, chose to teach other nurses and improve our healthcare system from the inside. Think about how Representatives Hanbidge and Stevens, who we're going to meet later today, dedicated their careers to fighting for and protecting the rights of people, especially children, who couldn't fight for themselves. Think about how Commissioner Lawrence, who we're going to hear from in just a few hours, and Representative Malagari, who could have taken their policy expertise anywhere they wanted, used their knowledge to build literal bridges and make Montgomery County a more safe, welcoming, and beautiful place to live in. That's what it means to be a public servant. The problem with our government is that you only hear about what's not working. Yeah, our country's divided. We might not be able to change that overnight, but Montgomery County isn't. Montgomery County is actually doing great. And I understand that one part of one state can't put our country back together right away. And yes, it would be pretty stupid of me to think that these 5 politicians are enough to counteract the damage done and repair our country. But look around. Those 5 people have improved almost 13 million lives. That's the population of Pennsylvania. There are over 1,000 of you. I'm not saying you all have to run for political office, and you don't have to do that to make people's lives better. All you have to do is listen, and that's what we're asking you to do today. Out of all of these issues you're going to be discussing, at least one of them affects your family, or affects your best friend and their family, or affects that kid who let you borrow a pencil one time in math class. It's easy to feel like Washington is playing games with your life, and if you think that, yeah, you're right. What they don't tell you is that the ball's in your court, because you get to vote. Politics is presented about being all about appearance or money or fame, but it's not. It's about making people's lives better. It's that easy. It's showing people that you care about their problems. I know that you all care. Show us why you care. We can't fix politics and we can't fix this country by tapping out and walking away. We fix it by having each other's backs. We've done it before and we can do it again. Thank you. Now I'm going to throw it over to my wonderful co-chair, Catherine Cavanaugh.
Hello, 2020 Democratic National Delegates. My name is Catherine Cavanaugh, and I am honored to be one of your permanent co-chairs today, along with the amazing and spectacular Rachel Rubens and Alexis Bamford. Just another hand for both of those wonderful ladies. So, why are we here today? Well, the Democratic National Committee is held once every 4 years to nominate Democratic candidates for president and vice president to run in the general election in November, as well as create a party platform around which the members of the party rally to support. Established in 1848, the main goal of the DNC is to whip up support for the selected candidates and excite the party members to increase voter turnout in the fall. Today, you all represent the delegates of the DNC. Delegates are men and women chosen in each state, the District of Columbia, and a number of overseas territories to vote at the DNC. Many of these delegates in real life are already pledged to candidates before they get to the convention. These delegates are voted upon by our primary elections and caucuses in the spring. The DNC also has unpledged delegates who serve by virtue of party, called superdelegates. This only takes place in the Democratic Party. There are no superdelegates at the Republican National Convention. They're people who held former political office within the Democratic Party, like presidents or governors, and they aren't pledged to any specific candidate. They go in and they're a lot like the wild cards. We have a couple of superdelegates today. A usual DNC begins with an address from the mayor of the town in which it is.
We're now going to pull it back to the desk here at the studio, where I'm Eric Jesberger here from the NPTV studio discussing over some of the topics, where we pull back from Catherine Cavanaugh discussing the Rules Committee report and adoption, where she continues her speech kind of talking to the morning crew and the delegates down in the auditorium. We're going to now check in with Spencer Howell and kind of discuss the platform coming up next. And also, in addition, Spencer and Skylar, what has the atmosphere been like so far down there in the convention?
So it's been a great time. There's been a lot of respect from a lot of these students. They're really interested in what these people have to say, especially the three co-chairs, Alexis Bamford, Rachel Rubens, and Catherine Cavanaugh. Right now, they're about to discuss the discussion of the platform, and they're going to vote on the big issues such as drug policy, opioid crisis, criminal justice reform, and climate change. And there's many more to come, but we're just looking to vote on these big issues, and that's about it. Throwing it back to you, Eric.
So you got to assume some of those big controversial topics coming up next. Before we throw it back to Casey Cavanaugh, Skylar, what are some of your expectations in this next set of discussions? Opioid crisis, you got climate change coming up. What's some of the expectations you have for the buzz going to be going down in the auditorium and on the floor?
Well, there are definitely some controversial issues that no matter what political party you are, you're likely to have a strong opinion on it. So with those, I anticipate a lot of student involvement, a lot of buzz in the auditorium, that people feel like they have a voice, they're excited to debate these issues and get into it and get involved. So yeah, I anticipate a lot of interaction with those issues.
All right, a great look at what's coming up next. Thanks, Skylar and Spencer, for your report down there on the floor. We're going to now throw it back into Casey Cavanaugh, continuing to discuss the Rules Committee report and adoption. Here's Casey Cavanaugh.
But we are North Penn. There is no other group doing this before us. And I know that with the North Penn spirit that we have, for the first time in 44 years, I think we can pick a winner, don't you? All right, guys, so are we ready to pick a winner? All right, let's do this. We're going to send it over to Mr. Haley now.
The thing that makes this kind of important to me and special to me is that in a month, the states are going to start doing their caucuses and primaries. The states are going to be voting on who should represent the Republican Party, who should represent the Democratic Party. We're doing it a month before anybody else. We're going to be the first organization to announce who we think should run for president in 2020. All right, now, in order to get this done, obviously the candidates aren't here today. So we have a series of students who have volunteered to act as the campaign manager, campaign spokesperson for different candidates. You've seen the signs hanging around the building. That's where the signs came from. The students created them, the students hung them up. So they're going to be walking around the building today, walking around talking to you at various times during the day, trying to tell you about their candidate and why you should consider voting for them. So I'd like to bring the campaign managers down right here to my right. So if you are a campaign manager, come on down. Lucas? Did he just go? All right. So as you see these folks, they're representing different candidates. They're going to identify themselves, identify the candidate, and try to explain to you. Here comes Andrew Yang. Here comes Joe Biden. All right. So don't get confused if a person comes up and starts talking to you about a candidate. That's their job. That's what they're going to be doing today. All right? So we're going to move on to the next phase now. We have a series of issues that you guys will be able to talk about. We have 3 microphones across the front, 3 across the middle. Students are going to lead you through the different issues, and they're going to identify a microphone, and the person at that microphone will be able to speak. So it's microphone 1, 2, 3 down across the front, and then 4, 5, 6 across the back. All right? So if you are interested in an issue, wherever you're sitting, there'll be a microphone near you. Get up, get in line. All right, we're going to ask you to be concise and clear. We don't have 4 days to talk about issues. So we're trying to just kind of scratch the surface and get you thinking about them. So as the issues come up, you come to a microphone. We're going to start with a 10-minute time limit on each issue. If there's still a lot of students that want to talk about it, then we have a procedure to extend it for another 5 minutes. But we want to cover as many topics as we can. When you get to the microphone and it's your turn to speak, you'll be recognized. Keep it to 30 seconds to a minute so that everybody that has interest has a little bit of time to talk about it. All right? So on that, we'll turn it over to Catherine Cavanaugh on immigration.
Little snafu, so we're going to head over to Ansh to discuss a little bit about the rules. We both chaired the Rules Committee, and I'd like him to speak briefly on what kind of things you should be expecting to see today. Thank you.
Good morning, delegates. My name is Ansh Sharma, your parliamentarian today, and I worked with Catherine Cavanaugh to chair our Rules Committee for this convention. Today, we will be using parliamentary procedure to ensure an efficient convention. If you have your convention packet, your information will be on pages 3 and 4 about how to use parliamentary procedure. We would love to hear from as many of you as possible during the platform section. However, there will be time constraints. Each topic will be allowed 10 speakers with a 1-minute speaking time each, totaling 10 minutes per topic, unless someone motions to extend this speaking time by 5 minutes. Today is a day to voice your opinions on our country's most pressing issues, so please take advantage of it. Thank you, and let's adopt these rules.
You can't get rid of me, so I'm back a little bit to talk about immigration today. All right? So, immigration, the unofficial monitoring of the international movement of people between country borders, is a hotly contested issue. It is the job of the Democratic electors to determine their stances on a few key issues within the immigration system. It is agreed upon that reform is necessary, but finding how much work needs to be done is part of our job today. While discussing immigration today, some key parts to focus on are the futures of the dreamers, the application process for green cards or visas, and the extent to which border security should change. The dreamers are children under the Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors Act. These children are minors who were born in another country, yet immigrated to the United States when they were too young to remember their homeland and sometimes their home language. These children are not legal American citizens, but it was the stance of the 2016 DNC to support these children in safely staying in America without the threat of deportation. In the 2016 DNC, the staff supported creating a straightforward path to citizenship for these students. In terms of visas and green cards, the Democratic Party in 2016 agreed that the path to entering the United States from a foreign country should be easier through the support of various different factions. There'd be an increase in immigration quotas and expediting the process used in admitting immigrants. Lastly, with the current administration, the topic of border security has grown in significance. With the current administration's support of the border wall at the southern border of the United States, it was the 2016 DNC's official position to oppose the construction of a border wall and condemn the increased policing of expulsion and suspected immigrants by communal vigilante groups as well as ICE, the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement staff. Esteemed delegates, these positions may have been held 4 years ago, but today it is your turn to decide upon your official platform and stances on these extremely complex issues. You are not the 2016 DNC. You are the 2020 North Penn Mock Convention DNC, and we would love to hear some ideas from you. Okay, so what will be happening is that there will be 10 minutes allotted for the students to speak. Each student will have about 1 minute to speak, and I'll give you a little notification as to just about when the time is up. I'll make sure to get a timer from the board over there. We will send you to a microphone. So either 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth back there, and someone will tap you. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And don't be shy about speaking today, because after all this, why would you want the same people getting up to speak all the time? It would be boring if I were to just stand up here and speak to you all day. All right? So we're gonna get some new faces up here with some interesting ideas. You don't have to be a Democrat to participate. There are people who set up the convention who aren't remotely Democrats, okay? You just have to want to participate. So we're gonna get some people to come up, and then we'll talk about immigration for a little while. Thank you.
Continued discussion about immigration following her Rules of Committee report and adoption. It was a great opportunity for the delegates and students there down on the floor to hear straight from one of our co-chair people talking about the discussions and the preparation for students being able to get their word in and continue the discussion. So we're now going to throw it back over to the floor where we will continue to hear from Casey Cavanaugh and get ready to hear from the students as well.
All right, so we have our first speaker coming up here. I'll put 1 minute on the timer and notify you after 45 seconds have passed. Okay? Thank you, and you may begin when you're ready.
So my mom works at Hatfield Elementary, and there's a lot of immigrant families there. And so my question is, why are we spending so much money on these DACA kids and the illegals that are here when there are people who come legally to the country and then acclimate to our culture, try all their best to learn English, to have a job, to raise a family, and then can't get their visa renewed. But then there's people who come here illegally, who stay way longer and use our country's economy and the money. So that's my question.
All right, and that's 40 seconds. Thank you very much. All right. Please raise your hand in any delegation if you would like to speak. We'll be grabbing some people. Mr. Haley will get them up to the mic. Come on up here, Mr. Haley. Mr. Haley, we have a gentleman in the blue shirt who'd like to speak. All right.
This is your opportunity to speak. All right, it's not a question and answer process. You can ask a question. Somebody can respond to your question from the audience. This is for you to discuss. All right, this isn't a classroom lecture. So you're allowed to come up and talk about ideas. You're allowed to ask questions. And let's see if anybody in the audience wants to respond to you. All right, so microphone 3.
All right, so at the 45-second mark, I'll let you know and just go ahead and tie up any loose ends.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready.
So if you were going to get rid of the wall and abolish ICE, what would you replace it with to keep criminals, illegal citizens from coming over in the wrong way?
Are you asking me directly?
Well, I guess no, it's just a question, what would replace it?
Okay, good question for the candidates. Anything else you'd like to discuss, your opinion on it?
No.
Wonderful. All right. We have another speaker at mic 3. All right? Go for it. Is the mic working?
Is this working? Okay, yeah. No, okay, sorry. So I just want to pose the question, why are we complacent with people, immigrants coming here, and we have places where we allow them to stay undocumented and, you know, have no repercussions? I support that we need to abridge the process so that we can make it easier for them to come here, but at the same time, why are we letting them stay here without any problem?
All right. Thank you. Do we have any other speakers on the issue? I think we have someone. All right, back there in the blue sweatshirt. Is your mic on?
It's not on.
Okay.
It's not on.
I think that's mic 6. Could we get mic 6 working?
All right. So
All right. And you can start whenever you're ready.
All right. I just wanted to know, like, who here likes Barack Obama? Like, yeah, we have Barack Obama. All right. That's good. I just wanted to say, like, I support like what he's doing with like Barack Obama and the Obamacare. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. I believe that we have someone up here at mic 3.
This work? This work? Oh, yeah, it does.
Yep.
All
And
right.
just begin when you're ready.
All right, so my question basically is, what do you guys think abolishing ICE would exactly accomplish when they do deport some of the people that actually pose some sort of threat to our country?
All right. Thank you very much. We have someone back again at mic 6.
I'm Ivana, and I was born in Bulgaria, and my mom is an immigrant too. And I feel like people like give us a lot of hate for being immigrants, but like we do so much, and we still like don't feel like we fit in and find our place, and it's really hard when I feel like everyone's kind of against you in a way. So like, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
All right. Thank you very much. We have someone at mic 5, I believe. Oh, right up front, mic 1.
Okay, so concerning the second speaker's question of why is America letting immigrants stay with no repercussions, because America is a country based on morality and ethics. And I don't know about you, but if it was your family, how would you feel if you risked your life coming into a country solely, or put yourself in the parents' perspective. You don't want a better life for yourself, but solely for your children. And you're risking your life and everything you've ever made solely for your children. And then you come into a country that preaches freedom, respect, and individuality, and you are solely met with a door in your face or a wall.
Thank you. We're going to go to mic 5 now. You may begin when you're ready.
While we do need to crack down on immigration, I think it needs to be said that we do need to make sure that we are watching how we treat the people that are being detained by ICE, that the living conditions they are being put in is unacceptable, because those who say, like, make America great again, how are we living in a great country when there are children in cages living in their own feces? sleeping under foil blankets is unacceptable.
All right. We have someone over at mic 4. Mic 4, you ready? Yes.
Hi, yes. I'd like to discuss the disconnect between illegal immigration and immigration. While there should be policing of illegal immigration, if we abolish ICE and do away with the idea of the wall, how would the Democratic candidates in this election police illegal immigration? That's just a general question for the candidates I'd like to see addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will take 2 more. You 2 ladies up front. We're going to start with mic 3 and then go to mic 1. So mic 3, you may begin when you're ready.
In reference to DACA kids, I just wanted to talk about how most of these children were brought when they were very young, and most of them now have grown up here and not even known that they were illegal immigrants themselves. Having grown up here, a lot of them don't even speak their own home language, so if we were to deport them back to their country, I don't know how they would necessarily function as they do here. And a lot of them actually pay taxes and support their communities, and vilifying them isn't going to solve anything when really we should be welcoming people into the country and trying to help them towards a better path to citizenship.
Thank you very much. All right, we will have one final speaker on immigration, and then we'll ask if you'd like to extend the session. Please remember that we would love to hear some statements. Oh, sorry, our Tom Steyer is back there, so we will have 2 final speakers, and then we will ask. Go ahead, Mr. Steyer in the back. Mic
Hello?
6. Thank you.
Okay. I want to raise the idea on the effectiveness of the wall. I believe that it should not go up. It is nonsense. It will not work. And I want to respond to questions to the Mike 4's question on how the candidates intend to police immigration. I believe that we need to increase funding for Border Patrol so we can actually get immigrants in. The thing is, when we cut funding, it takes people so long to get into this country that they end up having to cross illegally for their own safety, because they have the American dream in their hearts and they want freedom. They are trying to escape the awful conditions of South America, gangs, violence. All they want is the American dream, and I wish that we fund legal immigration programs instead of putting up a wall. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that is the campaign manager of Tom Steyer. The campaign manager for Tom Steyer. Now we're going to go back to mic 1. Mic 1, you may begin when you're ready.
Hello. So I'm pretty white, obviously. Hi, for anybody who can't see me. So I've really only ever known a life of a lot of privilege, and obviously hold on, I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this, but I feel like people need to recognize the fact that a lot of people don't have the same privilege as a white person has in America, and they need to vote that way and make sure that the people who are in the minority have representation and kind of take a step back so that we can help people who are trying to come in as immigrants who aren't white. You feel me?
Thank you very much. Now, would anyone like to motion to extend this for another 5 minutes? All right, we have some people in the front who want to extend it. We're going to throw it back to mic 5, and that'll give us the opportunity for about another 5 speakers. So if you'd like to speak, please head to a mic. Mic 5 in the back, you may begin when you're ready.
My name is Josh Martinez, and I've gone to this school for a while, and I took 3 years of American history. And if we look back on our history, if you're not 100% Native American, you are an immigrant. That is just how it is. So I don't think that we should just remember that when we're making actions and making decisions in this country. That's all.
Thank you very much. Let's throw it up to mic 3. You may begin when you're ready.
Okay. Just want to make sure it was working. Going back to what Mike 6 said earlier, the whole wall thing, yes, I agree that it shouldn't be a thing, but at the same time, we shouldn't make immigration a lot easier. We're not trying to have a second 9/11. We need...
You have to let him speak, even if you disagree, please.
If we think back to when 9/11 happened, we had Operation Desert Storm that caused a lot more people to die. So if we just increase our national security, less people will die. Cool.
All right, good over at mic 3. We're going to take mic 1. You may begin when you're ready.
All right, I don't know if many of y'all could tell, but I'm also white. Like, you can tell I'm white, and I am not privileged whatsoever. I come from a father that started working on food stamps at 18 and left his house, no money in his pocket, dropped out, said goodbye, kissed his family goodbye. And now I live here in a nice, beautiful home with 3 brothers and a beautiful mom, family life that's beautiful, all because of the American dream. My dad set out and worked and grinded, no handouts. So I don't know what you think white privilege is, but it's not a real thing. People really grind for their living, and I grind for my living. I'm 18 years old and I have 4 jobs. I pay for my own car, my own insurance, my own gas, my own health insurance my father makes me pay for. So you best believe that white privilege, it may not be a real thing.
Okay, it looks like we have 2 people back at mic 4.
Hello. Oh.
All right. At mic 4, you may begin when you're ready, and then we will take 2 more speakers.
All right. Hey, Catherine. My name's Aranza. For those of you who don't know, I'm Mexican. I was born in Mexico, and my family's all from Mexico. Obviously, you can't tell because I guess like half these people want to identify as like more than that, like as white, whatever. Anyways, one thing on the wall, airplanes. Most immigrants that come here come from overstaying their visas, from airplanes. So when people talk about the wall, little confusion there. I mean, I'm sure there are people who do cross from the border. And aside from that, illegal immigration, a lot of those are people that are working on farms and lower class, jobs and stuff like that. So unless the rest of you guys want to be starting to working on like berry farms and picking apple trees, like by all means live your dream, but you shouldn't stop other people from trying to find a better life for their family, for their home life, and try to improving the economy as well. If all of us can just work together to find a better way and instead of trying to go against each other, I think we can all improve America to make a better job, living facility and economy for everybody. Yep. Bet?
All right, that's a minute. Thank you. All right, we're going to take 1 more speaker. Go ahead. Right from mic 1.
Okay. So, in reference to the white privilege that he says isn't real, that's a lie. Because literally, I'm black, okay? If I were driving and a police officer stopped me, there's a very good chance I'm gonna die. But if I was white, you would stay alive. Because I swear, the police brutality that is happening and everything like that doesn't happen to you. That doesn't happen to you because you are white. Okay? And that's all I wanted to say, because white privilege is real, and you have it even if you lived in an underprivileged life.
If there's a moment,
it's still there. You may have gone through things, but you're not going to go through the same things that I've gone. I'm probably not going to go through the same things you have gone. I may be a little bit more privileged when it comes to family life and everything, but when it comes to the outside and how I look like, I don't look like you. So that's some things are just going to happen.
Thank you very much. That's all the time that we have for immigration. We're going to be moving to our next issue. I'm sorry, don't worry. You'll have an opportunity to speak later, okay? I promise. All right, we're going to be moving to our next platform.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's all about. You talk about discussions going on down on the floor, students and delegates getting ready to say their piece, get to the microphone, make their stand for what they support, all with the objective of supporting just further discussion in this democratic simulation. We're going to bounce it down now to the floor with Spencer and Skylar. Spencer Hobble, Skylar Simpson. They're going to continue to talk about what exactly went on, the atmosphere going on down there. Guys, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Eric. The room definitely became alive with that big issue on immigration. Two of the really big things to talk about were the DREAM Act and about immigration, about the wall. There was many arguments on both sides, it seems, of the spectrum, but you definitely saw some big liveliness and some big arguments. It's going to make it tough for the candidates to decide where they stand on it and where the platform is going to stand on it. So now we're on to our next issue, and let's see what's going on.
All right, thank you, Spencer, for the quick recap of the immigration and discussion going on. We're now going to bounce it back down to the floor where our next topic gets underway, with students continuing to bring up their topics of discussion. Let's listen in.
Regardless of your ethnicity, race, or gender, a strong economy leads to a better quality of life for everyone. Right now, the economy is thriving. We have record low unemployment rates, and in recent years, the economy has grown in terms of gross domestic product and the stock market. However, there are still many unsolved problems related to the economy in America that we as a country must decide how to deal with. Some of these problems are listed on the screen above, including trade, income inequality, taxes, debt, and the national budget. Right now, we will begin the economy platform debate. If you have a comment or opinion regarding anything listed above, or something related to the economy that isn't listed, please come to the nearest microphone and lend a voice in our discussion. Also, please try to stay within the 1-minute time limit. Finally, please do not take the microphone out of the microphone stand. So, let's begin this whenever anyone's ready to come up to a microphone. Okay, I see microphone 6 back there. Microphone 6. Okay, ready, go.
Hello? Okay. Now, I want to address the concept that people use the stock market to measure economic success. The stock market does not reflect your average American. Okay, the average American does not own stocks. The richest Americans are the ones that own stocks. Just because the richest Americans are doing well, that does not mean that the rest of us are doing well. I assume most of you don't own stocks. I assume most of you have parents that don't own stocks. The stock market does not reflect how we are doing. How we are doing reflects how we are doing, okay? We are not doing better. Life is going to get more difficult for all of us. We must keep a better idea of how we are doing. The stock market does not reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 5 back there. Microphone 5.
Is this okay? So I would like to introduce the concept that just because there is a low unemployment rate, well, not everyone is living on a living wage. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. That is not a living wage. Just a low unemployment rate does not mean that Americans can live comfortably. So I feel like we should raise the minimum wage at the very least.
Okay,
so
thank
Americans
you.
can live comfortably.
Okay, microphone 3.
Going on the stocks thing that I guess the campaign manager, Tom Steyer, was saying, basically what I got from what he said was if you want to be rich, own stocks. That's all I got from that. But also on the minimum wage of what whoever said it at Mike 5 was talking about, if you raise the minimum wage, the prices of goods raise, so then the dollar becomes more and more worthless every time you raise the minimum wage. So raising it isn't going to do anything.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, microphone 1.
I wanted to specifically combat the claims about the minimum wage. So one, if
the minimum wage should follow American productivity. It would be about $22 an hour at this point, not $7. So what we're really trying to do here is just account for the productivity that American workers are creating. And that goes on with Elizabeth Warren's plans to help the middle class. So what he said about most Americans not owning stocks is untrue. I just looked it up. About over half of Americans actually own stocks. So the plan is not to completely stifle the stock market, because a lot of Americans do own that. It's about regulating the richest Americans to make sure that they're paying their fair share while the middle class is able to really succeed in this country with all the hard work that they're doing, putting forth.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
I think the general theme here is that the economy is not working. But what I have to say, it's working exactly as intended, but it's not designed to work for us. They say, like, if the American dream is if we work hard and persevere, we will get ahead. But I think everyone here, even just talking to your parents, we work hard, our parents work hard, but a lot of people just aren't seeing the results. Like, it isn't designed, like, if you're working 2-3 jobs, the logic should be you should be rich, but we're not seeing that because, as people said, wages aren't matching our actual productivity. And they haven't matched it since the 70s, and this, like, that's something that really needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
I'd like to propose the idea that raising the minimum wage is not the answer. However, figuring out ways to lower the cost of necessities and the cost of living is the answer. Figuring out how to lower the cost of healthcare, shelter, food, clothing, and all those necessities is the way to reduce the burden on the working class. Raising the minimum wage is just going to make things cost more and is going to increase the cost of living, which won't be productive. So figuring out how to lower that is the answer.
Thank you. Microphone 6.
Hey, everyone. So I'm going to address income inequality. Both my parents have gone to college for facilities management, and my mom makes 45% more money than my dad. So a lot of people say that, like, women make like 77 cents to the dollar compared to men. And that just, like, to me, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever if my mom makes 45% more money than my dad does, using the same exact degrees. So, I mean, like, y'all can beef, but I just think that's facts, so.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
All right, my name is Elijah Slayton, and I am the campaign manager for Amy Klobuchar. In regards to taxes and tax policy, Amy Klobuchar wishes to raise taxes on the rich and cut taxes for the middle class. The money from the raised taxes on the rich would fund infrastructure, so rebuilding roads, highways, bridges, and everything like that. And she also wishes to invest in minority small businesses so they can prosper as much as all the big corporations you see in America.
Thank you. Microphone 6.
Hi. So to address what the previous speaker here said, I don't think it's fair to judge, like, what's happening throughout the nation based on one person's experience. The wage gap or gender wage gap is there. It's not as pronounced as it was, but I don't think you should be able to judge a nationwide issue based on one person or one family.
Thank you. Microphone 5.
Going with the wage gap as well, like having personal experience at my job, 2 people worked the same amount of time, same job, and the male in the situation was making $2 more than the female, and it was never addressed, even though everybody in the facility was asking for it to be. So I think, like, the wage gap is definitely real.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Hi, I'd just like to say that I think the biggest issue in terms of taxes is that mega corporations like Amazon and Netflix paid $0 last year in taxes. So I think that's something all candidates should have to address.
Thank you. Microphone 1. Microphone 1.
Here?
It's you.
Hello? Hello? Okay. So, just a brief question on taxes. What's to stop the rich from simply moving to another country or outsourcing jobs like a company would to another country? Because Apple has done that to China, Nike's done that with other countries in Asia, and in Africa, and Egypt. So what's to stop them from outsourcing, from doing that? How is it going to be effective if they're just going to move somewhere else and take their jobs elsewhere? That's it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have a motion to extend the discussion on the economy. That's a yes? Okay, so anyone at the microphones now can speak. Otherwise, we're going to move on after the people at the microphones. So, microphone 2.
You. All right. I don't. Okay. For what I know, and that's not a lot. Capitalism is crazy, my guy. You can make so much money doing it yourself, and it's obviously not gonna happen really fast, but I don't, like, all y'all have Instagram, right? And you always see all those get rich quick type people. Obviously they didn't do it quick, but they all did it themselves with one mindset, and it's capitalism. And I think maybe it's not like maybe your parents weren't doing it, and that's not your fault or their fault for why you're set as you are now, but I just think the capitalism is crazy, and you can make money yourself a lot, and you'll do it all yourself, and you'll be rich. Capitalism, let's go. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Hello. In response to what an earlier speaker said, I don't see how we can raise taxes for the rich. Like, I feel like that discourages the American dream. Like, if I'm a poor person, why am I gonna want to get rich if I'm just gonna have to pay more taxes? I think we should target like the companies more.
Yeah. Thank you. Microphone 5.
33. Okay, we're good. So I like to speak about the gender wage gap, and I feel as though, and actually coming from a study by Purdue, I feel as though the gender wage gap exists only because of career choice, and I feel like we don't take that into account. So I feel as though the top 5 highest paying jobs in terms of careers, I feel as at 4 out of the 5 of those, according to Purdue, 4 of the 5 of those are predominantly men in those jobs, and of the least paying jobs, 4 of the 5 of those are predominantly women. So from Purdue University, that statistic exists. And studies show that the gender wage gap is only actually 6 cents compared to the 23 cents.
Thank you. Microphone 6.
I just wanted to talk about, I think it will affect all of us with automation and how that comes into play. Because right now in America, the most common job is like a truck driver in I think 29 out of the 50 states. And that's 3.5 million Americans. And with companies like Tesla developing self-driving trucks, in the next 10, 20 years, a lot of those jobs could just go away. And that's gonna cause huge unemployment. And it's not just those types of jobs. Like malls, I think in the next 5 years, 30% are expected to close down because of companies like Amazon. And it's not like they're not creating more jobs for all the people they displace. They just have robots replace them. So it doesn't really work for all Americans. While it helps the top 1% of the wealthier people, it doesn't work for everyone. And that top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 40%. And I don't believe that's fair either. And I think that's just important.
And finally, we're going to go to microphone 2 in the front.
I wanted to comment on the wage gap. If you actually look at all the studies, all they do is compare total earnings between men and women. They don't actually take into account the amount of hours that were worked or the amount of work put in or what starting pay the woman or male asked for. So I personally don't believe in the wage gap, and there's some reasons why.
All right, thank you. We're going to end the discussion about economic policy right now. and we're going to call up Rachel Rubens to talk about drugs, everyone's favorite subject.
All right, bringing it back now to the desk here. Jesper reporting in from the TV studio and now talking about a little bit about the recap to the topics of economy. Let's check in with Spencer and Skylar real quick before we get back to Rachel Rubens there on stage talking about the next topic of discussion in the platform discussion. Skylar and Spencer, what were some of the biggest buzzes you saw in the conversation about the economy? We had the wage gap being visited, taxes. What were some of the biggest discussion points you saw down there?
Well, the economy was definitely the biggest debated issue yet. There's a lot of passion and spirit going on. Some things they talked about, gender inequality and wages, the wage gap, the stock market, just kind of things like that. A lot of people have their own very strong opinions, but it's really nice to see everybody kind of coming up to the microphone, relating their personal experiences to it, like really getting into it. And now we have Rachel Rubens on the stage talking about our next topic of drug usage.
All right, thank you, Skylar. We'll get to Spencer in just a moment. Let's now send it up to Rachel Rubens, one of the co-chair speakers now, talking about our next topic of discussion.
This is a mental health problem as well as a drug problem. So there are some ideas of decriminalizing the possession of opioids by removing the federal threat of jail or prison time for simply processing them, and thinking of better health care to help people help their addiction. So that's one side of drug policy. The other topic that you guys can discuss is about Juul pods and vaping. Juul pods are an alternative to cigarettes and have recently been shown to have adverse health effects. The problem with Juul pods is that it's not just adults who are taking them, it's also teens. 56% of young people who have used Juul or an e-cigarette say that they were younger than 18 when they started using it. The reason for this is that Juul pods come in an assortment of flavors, making them more attractive to young people. The company Juul has been using these flavors to market to younger people. The adverse health effects of vaping cannot be ignored. Vaping and e-cigarettes have led to a new lung disease called EVALI, or e-cigarette and vaping product use, associated lung injury. Vaping products and e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is a highly addictive drug. Research has shown that people who vape are more likely to use cigarettes later on. Now, please go ahead and discuss with everyone and then come up to the microphone when you're ready to talk about this.
All right, and as our topic of drugs gets in the works of students getting ready to say their piece and step up to the microphone, down there with Rachel on the floor, we're going to bring back the studio real quick and catch up with the campaign manager for Pete Buttigieg joining us in the studio now with Rachel Allmark. Rachel, who do you have for us?
We have Quinn Slayton today, a junior. So what were your responsibilities leading up to the convention and in the convention day?
Leading up to the convention, it was a lot of researching policy, researching, who Pete Buttigieg really is and how, he's done for himself politically in life, things like that, like things of that nature. It was also, a lot of speech writing, a lot of, practicing, a lot of, focusing on, campaigning and making posters and
yeah. So you said you did a lot of research politically for him. So why should we vote for him?
Well, Pete Buttigieg, while he is running on the Democratic ticket, he is a more moderate candidate. He does appeal to both sides of the political spectrum. He really does focus on not necessarily party politics. He focuses on who America, really is and what America really wants. And that does reflect in his policies. He does, advocate for, the little guy, the underdog. He is very, outspoken about, bipartisan issues, really.
Yeah. As the convention as a whole, what are your expectations for the day?
Expectations for the day. I don't know. I expect, people to, take it not necessarily seriously, but, take it some modicum of seriously because it is, an important event. This is, a behind the scenes look at how political conventions really work. So I do expect, some fights to break out because, not everybody's a Democrat. But I do expect, wholesome, healthy discussion about, these issues that are being presented.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for your time. We're going to throw it back to the desk. Eric, take it away.
All right, thank you, Rachel, and great interview there conducting with the campaign manager for Pete Buttigieg. Ms. Slane, thank you for joining us in the studio today. We're now going to throw it back down to the floor where we continue our topic and get ready in our debate. Let's see and take a look.
Number 5, please.
Okay.
Everybody, please quiet down.
Okay, I am the representative of Cory Booker in this convention. And the way Cory Booker sees it is that we must end this war on people that really is the war on drugs. It's not a war on drugs, it's a war on people that has ruined the lives of thousands of people who are still in prison for non-lethal drug offenses, most of which do target Black African American communities, and this has led to a large number of African Americans in prison. What we must do is legalize marijuana so that people, specifically people of color, do not end up in prison and have their entire lives ruined.
Okay, microphone number 4.
Hi, my name is Autumn Alexander, if you don't know me, and I'm going to talk about legalizing pot, basically. The reason why even pot is illegal is because of racism and not even because of the drug itself. My personal psychiatrist even did a personal study on marijuana and even said that he found little to no evidence of cannabis actually being bad for people. It's just that people need to be more educated on it, and there needs to be more money going to funding it to learn more about it because of certain strains. It's not a bad drug. People just don't know anything about it.
Oh yeah, baby. Okay, thank you. Great. Microphone number 1, please.
Okay, I'm just gonna start out with.
Okay, everybody, please quiet down.
In March of 2019, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer, and he did trials of chemo and radiation for 6 months. And the doctors tried to tell us that there was nothing else left for him to do until he tried his medical marijuana card, and that was the only thing that was proved on his scans that showed that his tumor in his stomach shrunk by more than 10% because of marijuana.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, microphone number 2, please.
Hello, my name is Damian Miller. I'm a white man, and I have never taken any drugs in my life. I know it's astonishing. But I personally have experience with friends and family that have used it for both recreational and medicinal. My uncle, who is of African American descent, took it to ease his pain when he had cancer in his bones. He couldn't produce bone marrow for an entire year of his life. He was facing chemotherapy, and marijuana was the only thing that actually helped him get through the pain and the trouble. And I understand that there's definitely a war on drugs, and I understand that some definitely do harm you more than help. But I feel that marijuana is a much better alternative to, say, heroin or any opioids that may be taken. And I just wanted to say that legalizing marijuana is definitely a good choice in my book.
Thank you. Okay, microphone number 3, please.
All right, I'd like to bring this to the opioid crisis briefly, and mentioning what he just talked about, how like heroins and opioids are really bad. Basically, the pharmaceutical companies that create these drugs, they would like pay doctors to overprescribe them, and they would just basically push disinformation campaigns. They would lie about the effectiveness of these drugs. They would say they weren't addictive when in reality they're horrible. And like the life expectancy has gone down for the last 2 years. Drug deaths have overpassed vehicle deaths. Basically, this crisis is like hollowing out Appalachia. And these pharmaceutical companies are not being held accountable. They're now trying to sell the cures for the crisis they caused. And this is, like someone mentioned before, that capitalism is great. and it does have its upsides, but it also has these corporations basically getting rich off the suffering of others. And also, yeah, we shouldn't be throwing people in cages for smoking leaves. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, next up, number 6.
Hi. So, I have lost many people in my life to opioid addiction. 1, I am sick and tired of it. 2, we need to legalize marijuana because I am tired of it having a bad rap. Legalize it, don't criticize it.
Microphone number 5.
I'm a delegate from the state of Virginia, and I want to discuss legalizing marijuana and the bill that was proposed and passed for the restriction and sale of tobacco until age 21. We live in a country where you can go to war when you're 18, but you can't buy or use tobacco products until you're 21, and I don't think that makes any sense. And you can't smoke until you're 21, but you can go and kill somebody. And you can't drink alcohol until you're 21. Now you can't buy marijuana until you're 21. Making something illegal doesn't restrict your access to it completely. You can still go and obtain it illegally. So we should just legalize it and tax it. Therefore, we can boost the economy and give people safe access to it at the same time. People are just going to try to obtain it illegally, which gives them dangerous access to it on the black market and will put people in hospitals, and it will just give more issues than it will do good.
Okay, microphone number 4.
Okay, so my name is Kira. I am a medical marijuana user. I actually have my medical marijuana card for PTSD, anxiety disorder, depression, and insomnia. And I can tell you for sure, it helps. So I do strongly believe it should be legalized for recreational because I believe everyone should be able to be happy and not be stressed and filled with fear when going to school or out in public situations. Also, if you smoke a blunt, you're not going to find them dead in a bathroom like if you take heroin.
Thank you. Okay, so it seems like there's a lot of people that want to talk about this topic, so is there a motion to extend the time to keep... Yes, you can. What? 2 minutes? We get 2 minutes, okay? So everybody talk fast. Okay, microphone number 1.
Hi, my name's Jenna, and I have ADHD really, really bad, and I just feel like it needs to be legalized because it's a good alternative, and I don't want to take hard substances. I take pills for it every morning, and I just feel like it needs to be legalized.
All right, microphone number 2, please.
All right, so marijuana is a Schedule I drug, right, with no deaths linked to it, right? A Schedule II drug is cocaine. There are so many deaths linked to cocaine. If we legalize all of marijuana, another problem that we have to encounter is all the people in jail because of it. We have so many people, hundreds of thousands of people are in jail because of marijuana possession, non-violent crimes. But in California, it's completely recreational. So that's just a big problem that has to be addressed because nobody else is addressing it.
Thank you. Okay. Microphone number 3.
I wanted to talk briefly about sending people to jail for using drugs. I just think we're promoting bad habits. By sending them to jail, they're not learning anything, they're just waiting till they get out. There's also drugs in jail, so we're, instead of promoting, going to rehabilitation centers, instead of sending them there, we're just leading them down a path where they're not going to get any better. So instead of sending people to jail, I think we should focus more on helping them to get better lives, get jobs, instead of ruining them by sending them to prison.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to have 2 more speakers. So number 6, please go ahead. This is because of time. Obviously, we'd love to hear everybody speak, but we want to make sure the other topics are discussed as well.
I just wanted to say, does anyone else think it's weird that a 21-year-old can walk into an alcohol store, buy alcohol, and proceed to die of alcohol poisoning, but you can't go buy weed. Like, come on, weed's a vegetable. Legalize it.
Thank you. Okay, and we are going to be ending with number 5. So, what? Wait, but you guys. Please give me 5 minutes. Okay, just kidding. If you wanted to talk, please come back up. I was getting mixed signals. So, okay, so number 4, if you were next. Wait, who was next? Number 5? 4? You guys will all get to speak, but who is next, like, in line? 5? Okay, please go ahead.
I would like to say there's a very...
All right, bringing it back to the studio now, drawing away from the conversation. Multiple conversations going on down there on the floor. We're now going to check back in and we're going to listen in for Spencer Halval and Skylar Simpson on the floor discussing more about the drug policy, one of the most back and forth and most wanted to be extended topics so far in our discussion today. Skylar and Spencer, what are some of the biggest drawbacks you have from the conversation going on down there on the floor from the delegates and students bringing up their conversation points?
So, Eric, there's a very liveliness in the room, probably the most of the day, but the very cool thing that we saw today was many people that would talk about their personal stories, not only themselves, but their family, and it showed a great respect that the room got quiet whenever they were talking about the seriousness of those. And when there was the motion to extend the time, it was almost unanimous throughout the room, very loud, very emphatic. And it was just very shocking to hear how many personal stories. There were many people that seem affected by it. There's many people that seem they want to make a change for it. And it looks how it's great how there's very many students now getting involved with it. It looks like the best topic of the day, and hopefully to have this much involvement in later topics of the day.
And I definitely agree with that. Real quick, we'll get to you, Skylar. But you talk about the second speaker who came up once we got back up to the broadcast, and where she was talking about a personal story where her father diagnosed stage 4 kidney cancer, how marijuana actually helped the tumor. Those are some stories that get brought up, and it captivates the room. That's something that these student discussions are continuing to bring up topics and further the discussion to other delegates. So what can you say about that kind of effect, where students are continuing the conversation, stepping up for what they believe, and also bringing personal values where they captivate the room and continue the discussion going, Skylar?
Yeah, well, it's definitely getting other people involved, because there might be some people who say, oh, I can relate to this, but they're too scared to talk about it or kind of vocalize their opinion on it. But every single time somebody comes up here with a personal story about them or their families, I can just see it in the auditorium. It inspires so many other people to feel like their voice is being heard. So it's really an inspiration every time somebody comes up to the microphone, and it really has such an incredible effect on the auditorium.
All right, thank you, Spencer and Skylar. Great perspective you guys had there down on the floor. Us in the studio getting to listen in. It's definitely amazing hearing these stories and continuing the topic of discussion. And now drawing it back to the studio, we're going to catch up with Rachel Allmark back in the studio with the representative, the campaign manager for Andrew Yang. Rachel, what do you have for us today?
Brandon Vu, a 12th grader, the campaign manager for Andrew Yang. So can you tell us about what you've learned from this experience and something about your candidate that you find unique?
Yeah, so I think Andrew Yang is a really unique candidate in that he was not a career politician, and he really got involved in the political process because he found it fitting and he saw the issues that really no one else was seeing, as in technology and automation. And I think for me, as I am a STEM student here, I'm not too involved in some of like the humanities or the political process, but I found his issues that he was raising, the solutions that he had, very compelling to be able to represent him today.
Okay, awesome. How do you feel the atmosphere is in the convention auditorium?
Yeah, so the atmosphere of the convention it's really interesting to see. I was part of the planning committee, and we were setting up all the decorations, and it looked kind of empty with all the seats empty. And now I see the convention live, and the students really bring the event to life. And it's really interesting to see how, a lot of these personal stories can be coming out, and a lot of personal opinions and things that we normally wouldn't hear in like a classroom. We get to see that kind of diverse opinion of ideas.
Good to hear your take on it. Okay, thank you, and we send it back to the desk with Eric.
All right, thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Brandon Vu, the campaign manager for Andrew Yang, joining us in the studio to give us another perspective and inside look to what's going on down on the floor, and especially as a campaign manager, one of the Big faces on the day. We're going to look forward to catching up with more campaign managers throughout the day joining us in the studio, and also Sophie Collins, who continues to make her way around the floor. We're not going to send it back down to the convention going on. It's the 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention. We're going to send it back down to the floor and listen more on drug policy and the discussions going on with students and delegates. Let's take a look.
Microphone number 4. Everybody quiet down.
Okay. So I completely support marijuana for several reasons. One, first of all, our jailhouses and et cetera, our prisons, if it's all legalized, we'll have more room for more violent crimes. Nextly, if it was nationwide legal, we would make $130 billion in tax revenue in the first year that it was legal, allowing our country to come out of the $1 trillion of debt that we're already in. And secondly, it also does help with cancer. Cannabis repairs brain cells, it reproduces them faster. People have gone through cancer, took marijuana, and have gotten it cleared. People use it for anxiety, stress. It should completely be legal. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. That's it.
Okay, microphone number 1.
Hi, I'm the campaign manager for Pete Buttigieg, and his stances on the legalization of medical marijuana, legalization of recreational marijuana, but also holding pharmaceutical companies at fault for the opioid crisis. His plan is to hold them accountable for all the deaths, all the addictions, all the problems that have stemmed from the opioid crisis are the faults of the pharmaceutical companies.
Thank you. Okay, microphone number 2.
Going back to the person who said that people who overdose on like heroin is natural selection and we shouldn't help them, I feel like that's untrue. There are a lot of cases where people have been helped from like an anonymous group, like Steve-O from Jackass was very addicted to many hardcore drugs, and his friends got together and sat him down in like an anonymous meeting, and they actually, helped him, and he's been sober for about 2 years now. So I feel like that we can help those people, and it's not natural selection, and we should help those people.
Thank you. Okay, microphone number 3.
I feel like we shouldn't shame people for being addicted to substances. I feel like we should support them and help them going through their struggle with addiction, because losing that addiction is very challenging, and it's hard to do it by yourself when your family and friends are shaming you.
Thank you. Okay, microphone number 6.
So my opinion on dealing with recreational marijuana, when I was in 3rd grade, my mom had a seizure, and she was never believed to be an epileptic and couldn't get the help she needed until they got a marijuana card, which both of my parents are on Social Security, so they don't have the money for marijuana cards, and obtaining and maintaining that can be expensive. So if they could legalize recreational marijuana, it would help my mom significantly and help most of my family members who have insane, stuff wrong with them.
Okay, thank you. Microphone number 5.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about one thing in particular, and that's dab carts. Most of the dab carts that are related to deaths are from unregulated areas like China or other rural, real refined factories. I think if we legalize marijuana in America, and especially here in Pennsylvania, we could have some good-ass American weed.
Thank you. One more. Okay. Okay, so I'm really sorry about this. Please don't boo at me. Because of time, we can only do one more speaker. Please, microphone number 4.
As much as I don't have a problem with medical marijuana, because I think it can help people, I do have a problem with recreational marijuana, because I feel like although we can make tax money off of it, I think that we're gonna have a hard time reaching the same productivity in the workforce if we legalize marijuana. because it's really hard to work a 10-hour shift and work your best when you're constantly stoned.
Thank you.
Rest in peace, Juice WRLD.
Let me
Everyone, okay.
All right, folks. Obviously, we included this issue because we knew this was something of interest to you. We could spend the entire day talking about drug policy. All right? So we have to move on. We're going to tackle some other issues that are also
Bringing it back now to the studio, Eric Jesperger here reporting from the NPTV studio. And as we listen into the large debate and discussion over drug policy, opioid crisis being one of the main topics, you had marijuana being consistently brought up. We're going to now send it back down to Spencer Howell and Skylar Simpson in the convention down on the floor. You talk about some of the biggest buzz, and you mentioned before, Spencer, the most wanted to be continued to be discussed. Why this topic being further discussed? We had immigration going back and forth. We had other planks being continued to be discussed, but marijuana, drug policy was some of the big, marks in this. What do you feel that the campaign managers need to continue to talk about to further their support in today's convention and later on the nominees?
I feel like the campaign managers really got to realize that the youth are very active about this issue, and that there may have been a stigma behind these things, and now they will see that the youth are really paying attention to what could benefit from them. Not only was it talked about how they could help with the cancer issues and things like that, but also shown there was examples of how it could help economics and how it could help reduce debt by legalizing it and putting it to the national level. So there's a lot of very good points brought up to the podiums, and it was very good to see. It was almost about 20 minutes, you can say, of people talking, and it really showed how people really cared about this issue, and it was nice to hear from so many different people, and the crowd even wanting to have more of a topic about it, because it clearly was an issue, and see how the candidate may need to focus on it as one of their primary focuses.
And that's why something like this convention is one of the most prominent parts of North Penn, especially since 1976. Every 4 years continue to be discussed. This is the 12th convention being brought up. It's a Democratic Party here in 2020. And Skylar, now, what are some of the biggest takeaways you've had so far where students are continuing to bring up discussion, wanting to talk even more? What have been some of the biggest takeaways you have down there on the floor?
I think that conventions like these and just moments like these help students feel heard, because as I said before, everyone has their own perspective, but a lot of people don't vocalize it. So when you get into an event like this and you can see a lot of passion going around and you're able to talk about your own personal story and advocate for what you personally believe in, I think a lot of people, students especially, are taking away that they can be heard and people will respond positively because we welcome all these perspectives. North Penn is very welcoming of all sorts of opinions and perspectives.
All right, before we jump back down to the open discussions here on the platforms as the next plank gets underway, what are some of the states you've seen drawing the biggest buzz? States and the government classes were able to support a specific state where they continue to bring up, they even have flags set up, attire for their specific state they're supporting in discussion. Any specific states you're seeing the biggest buzz going on down there? Maybe one that candidates need to maybe set their eyes on and focus.
So there was two big ones. Obviously, there was Pennsylvania, our state that we live in. There was many ideas of the legalization of recreational weed, because in Pennsylvania, medical marijuana is already legalized. So there was obviously examples of how there's many students who actually are under that legalization. But also West Virginia, how they have proposed bills on how to use the money and towards the economics from legalizing recreational weed. So it showed how there's many different issues that can combine into one, and how this was a big vocalizing point. And candidates may look like some of the other states that maybe not have legalization yet or do have it, and how that can help improve the economy and get more votes from those delegates.
Thank you, Spencer and Skylar. Great insight there to the issues that we continue to recap and review over. Now we're going to throw it back down to the floor where the open discussion and the plank of student loan debt gets underway. Let's listen in.
Be going to college, and college would have to lower their prices because there'd be less people attending them and paying them.
Thank you. Microphone 6.
So a lot of people in this room will probably have their parents pay for their college, so they don't really understand the toll that debt can take. But my mom is a single parent, and she will not be able to help me with college at all. And to be able to get a teaching degree, it's 4 years. And if I want to get any minors, it's probably additional years. So I'm going to be working like 2 full-time jobs just to be able to graduate college with minimal debt, which is awful on mental health, which will eventually impair my ability to be in the workforce. So yeah.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Oh, Okay, so someone in the back said that most people are getting college paid by their parents. Personally, I am not, but I have worked to get athletic scholarships and academic scholarships to help me pay for college, which is one thing that I think most people try to do and should strive to do. But also, the main problem with student loan debt is the government's involvement, because the government had banks. Banks cannot deny anyone a loan. You can have a loan for however much money you want, even if you can't afford it, which is the main problem, because then people take out too much money, can't pay it back in the allotted time, have too much debt, and that's the biggest problem.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
All right. Well, one of the problems with student loan debt, like compared to every other sort of debt, is the one sort of debt you cannot file bankruptcy for. And a big part of the reason for that is lobbyists basically made it this way so they can squeeze as much money out of people as possible. And another thing, Bernie Sanders' plan is the only one that actually eliminates every bit of student loan debt, and that would help the economy drastically, because if you don't have people who are saddled by this, and some people who even have their Social Security garnished by this immense debt, like it's like $1.3 trillion in America, you have the economy being boosted a lot, basically.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
I'm all for free college, no student loans or debt, but in the scheme of things, where are we going to get that money? All it's going to do is raise our taxes, and then in turn, we still don't have money. I mean, Bernie Sanders, that's great. We all have free college and we don't have debt, but then at the same time, we're paying so much more money.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
I think that college should definitely be made cheaper, but I don't think we should in any way have like dirt cheap college or free college, because that really encourages a lot of people to go to college who are never going to use their degree. There are people who go to college and then just get like a job at Giant or Wawa that they're not using their degree. And if we send our entire nation's youth into college and then have to pay higher taxes but don't use the degrees, it's just not going to be efficient for our economy. I think that the prices still should be a little bit expensive to discourage everybody from going, but I do think it is definitely outrageous at this point with how high it is.
Thank you. Microphone 6.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I just want to know how many people in here are seniors? Exactly. So y'all are going through like the whole college process, thinking about college, but community college is always an option. I think people put such a bad stigma on community college, and I think your peers put pressure on you to think more about the name of the college, and you're not really thinking about the price afterwards. People think that because you go to such a high, level school, such a good school, that, community college is not an option for me. People will look at me and say, oh, you're going to community college? Oh, you're stupid? You couldn't make it into regular college? People put such a bad stigma on community college, and I think we should remove that stigma. And that's on period.
Thank you. Microphone 5.
All right. When it comes down to it, education has been utilized as a racial and classist barrier for decades. If you come from a wealthier family and are able to easily afford a college education, you're much more likely to attend. This in turn continues to promote the cycle of wealth, because those who are born into a family with better access to higher education will take the higher paying jobs, and then they can one day send their kids to university. So like you said, not everybody's going to use their college education, but if instead we make it affordable for those who are smart and hardworking, they're the ones that are going to get the college degree, and then people who feel pressured to go into it might not go into it because it's seen as an opportunity that anybody can embrace.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
I need to keep this short so to address what microphone 6 said like a while ago. I'm going to a really good school next year and we'll be in college for at least 5 years and my parents aren't paying for any of it, so.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
All right. As much as we all love the idea of free college, and as many previous speakers have said, it is not a practical idea. My candidate, Amy Klobuchar, wishes to lower the interest rates at which student loans are taken out, so you end up having to pay just only a little more than what you took out. But at the same time, she also wants to make the first 2 years of community college completely free, so you can get a technical degree without having to pay a penny.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
I think that we all should remember that college isn't always the answer. Like, there are always other options, and I think places like North Penn don't really promote that. Like, if you're not going to college next year and you're a senior, then it's like, oh, what are you doing with your life? But there's so many other options of what you can do. There are like trade schools, there's like jobs that you can like really excel in that you don't need college for. And that's it. There's nothing else to say about that.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
All right, so to respond to the comments made about having a college degree or paying for it at least in higher taxes, ending up not being efficient, if you look at the way automation is going and the way the job market is going in, maybe in the next 20, 30 years, most of those jobs that you see at Giant and Wawa will be automated. You're going to be speaking to an AI or a robot or something, and there's not going to be people there. So if you look at it, higher qualifications are they're going to be more necessary moving further. If you're not going to be working those jobs, you're going to be tending to the robots that will work those jobs. So it's important to at least have everyone on that same baseline of having that same educational equality and making sure that we can keep people moving forward with education.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'm going to just take one more person. Microphone 6.
Speaking as an individual, I have 9 siblings. My parents don't make a lot of money. I have to pay for college all on my own. All of my siblings have had to pay for college on their own. But the thing is, only some of my siblings have gone to college so far because it's so egregiously expensive that none of us can afford it. My sister didn't go to college. My brother didn't go to college. He just enlisted, so the army can pay for college. My other sister didn't go to college. My sister, who now has a 1.5-year-old son, is living by herself in the middle of Kentucky so she can, pay for her education, so she can provide a life for herself and her son. The system that forces people to pay so much in student loans, it's ridiculous. There's no end, and as much as, free college seems, like the greatest answer of all time, it's really not, because sure, people are going to have, easier ways to access secondary education after high school and whatever, but it's not gonna work out affordability because you're just ruining it's ruining the value of education, basically, by making it, this is a whole, my brain's a mess, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Immaculate, and she's going to talk about climate change.
All right, we're going to back here to the studio. Eric Jesberger reporting in here at the NPTV studio. Before we jump to our next plank of climate, where we're definitely going to have some back and forth discussion going on. We're going to throw it back down to Spencer and Skylar, reporting a little bit of a recap on student loan debt. What did you guys see down there as the biggest discussions, where we had conversations we had Julia Smeltzer, senior, down there, talk about how she doesn't need her parents to pay for college. That's some of the main aspects and perspectives, where we had another senior, Josh Martinez, even say, you don't need to pay for college if you don't go to college. So what are some of those topics being brought up where students have varying perspectives?
So you see that a lot of kids are forced to pay for college for themselves. And a lot of the questions are on, wow, it's really hard to pay for college. How are we going to be able to do this? And so there's a lot of different ways of doing it. For instance, one of the candidates, Bernie Sanders, it was free college for all. Some opposed, some liked the idea. But one of the big ideas that got a lot of attention was the idea of lowering interest rates on college loans. Because most students who have to pay on their own will have to take a college loan out, but as long as they can keep that price lower and not to pay interest over the years, they'll have an easier time paying for college. And a lot of students like that idea because there seems like a lot of students in the room that are going to be going to college and having to pay for them on their own.
All right, and Skylar Simpson, we're seeing a lot of buzz going on down there on the floor. Students and delegates are standing up, conversing between each other. What are you hearing down there, and what's exactly unfolding down there on the floor right now?
It just seems like we have the delegates and the students intermingling and talking to each other, getting more perspectives. It's especially nice to see the students talking to the delegates themselves, getting more information on all these topics. Obviously, we just finished a hot button topic, which is student loan debt. There's a lot of people here are seniors interested in college, so I can hear a lot of people talking about that, and a lot of people seem to be really interested in it.
It's also great to take a quick intermission after they've definitely been sitting around, standing up, getting up to the microphone quite a bit. As you talk the hot button topic, that's great to hear from you guys and continuing to bring in your perspective down there on the floor. So thank you, Skylar and Spencer, for letting us tune in and hear from you guys. We're not going to draw it back to the studio and send it over to Rachel Allmark here in the studio once again with another campaign manager. On hand is Xander Malin, representing Tom Steyer here as the campaign manager. Rachel, who do you have for us today?
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I have Xander Malin here. He's the campaign manager for Tom Steyer. Can you just take us through the convention preparation process and what you've learned about your candidate and what makes him unique?
Well, it was the campaign, like setting up for the campaign was incredibly fun. We came in on Monday, the day before New Year's Eve, and it was so fun. We had like these decorations, and it wasn't like Mr. Haley didn't have this like really specific plan. We just went around, we planned, we talked with each other, we decorated. I got to know all my fellow campaign managers and the advisors very well. And what you asked about what makes Tom Steyer unique is that he really looks to the future, I'd say, a lot more than other candidates. Like he's a billionaire. He got all this money, and instead of being selfish about it, he started all these nonprofits encouraging young people to vote, and climate change really scares him, and he campaigned strongly against the Keystone Pipeline, criticized President Trump. So that's what makes him unique. He looks a lot more to the future, I'd say, than other candidates do.
Mm-hmm. And if you just say one more thing about your candidate for the high school students to know, and what do you think will make them want to vote for him the most?
He worries about climate change, like I just said, a lot more than any other candidates. And Washington is run by much like older people. No one in our generation is in Washington, obviously. And I feel like he really cares about what the planet he's going to leave behind, climate change-wise, the idea of flooding areas of low elevation. I mean, that could displace millions of people. And we're the ones that are going to have to put up with that in like 50 or so years. So I want to make, he cares. He wants to make sure he leaves behind a good legacy.
Awesome.
For us.
Thanks for your input, Xander. We're going to throw it back to the desk. Take it away, Eric.
Yeah, real quick, if you don't mind, Xander representing Tom Steyer today. I want to ask a quick question because we definitely see you down on the floor. You're continuing your own perspective and continuing the topic of discussion. You chipped in on immigration and many of the points on drug policy. What do you feel was most important about you being a campaign manager with multiple other campaign managers, allowing you to get say in the topics of discussion and get your voice heard where other delegates and students can relate to your candidate?
Well, I'm going to be completely honest with you. He is not the most relatable guy. He is a billionaire. He's worth like 1.6 billion. He's lived this really good life, and I'm going to be completely honest with you about that. But he's founded multiple charities, and I feel like he really sees us. There is an organization he founded called Next Gen America, which is to encourage specifically young voters of our generation to vote and to make sure that we are informed. And that's what I think makes him the most unique and probably the best choice for us, because I feel like he sees us a lot more than any other candidate.
Also, really appreciate the input there, Xander Mallon, representing, being the campaign manager for Tom Steyer today. We're now going to let you go, keeping up your time, as I'm sure you're going to be busy heading back down to the delegates while they have a quick intermission and intermingle as we continue to see where they're continuing to discuss in between each other. So we thank you for your time and joining us. Thank you, Rachel, for another great interview. We're going to definitely continue to bring in more of those as we just wrapped up our 4th plank of the day in the platform. We have a total of 13, so we have plenty more to get to. So continuing the topic of discussion and wrapping up the student loan debt, we're going to send it back now to Spencer and Skylar down there on the floor here at the 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention. Spencer and Skylar, what's going on right now down on the floor, and perhaps mainly some of the topics being discussed as we get ready to jump into our next plank.
So right now it looks like the students are taking their seats again after the quick intermission. Definitely needed for a lot of students, as maybe the energy was getting a little too rowdy in the room. But going about that last point about student loan debt, one of the really big things that was talked about and that many students really got excited about was the lowering the stigma against community college. As we've seen right here in our community, Montgomery Community College, it's a big place. A lot of students go to it for the first 2 years, and it looks like it's going to be a big talking point for students on whether these candidates really favor it or not, because if candidates can favor it and give these students more education, I think a lot of these students are going to like that idea from the candidates and get them more votes.
All right, and now over to Skylar. What are some of the focuses you're going to see as nominations are getting ready to get underhand? We still have till 11 o'clock to continue our discussions of the planks. Once votes are going to be kind of ranked in, what are some of the topics you're seeing being swayed mostly in support of, maybe specific states or overall the Democratic Party as a whole?
I think one of the big topics that a lot of people are agreeing on is the legalization of marijuana. Obviously, that was a pretty big discussion. I think that in terms of immigration, a lot of people were leaning towards protecting legal immigrants, but there's been a lot of debate on all of the topics thus far, so it's kind of hard to see with some of them what direction they're going to go, which is going to make it all the more exciting to see what the states feel and how exactly we're going to come together to make a decision.
All right, and as our delegates and students get ready to head back into their sections and find their seats, real quick, I want to pick your guys' brain a little bit and get your point of view, step back, and think about how amazing this kind of opportunity is. The 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention is something that is continuing to bring up discussions where students are bringing up their point of views and continuing to find support in one another. You know, what are you guys seeing down there on the floor? And for our first year getting ready to do this, you know, what's the experience been like for you guys?
This seems really great thing. Really shows the whole energy of North Penn, how all the students can come together and do one thing together. And maybe not all the students agree on the one point. There's a lot of things that can get students rallied up, but it shows how we all have a voice and we're all very well like to become involved in the school, even in many topics that we may have not talked about and even talked about in our classes, that we now have a chance to talk about in the more mature and things. I mean, we're a month out from the actual convention, and it shows how we'll do things that they will do the same, but we're students, just 17, 18 years old, and we're already ahead of the game.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The energy in here is pretty incredible. I've never been a part of something just this electric. There are so many people at this school, and there are a lot of quiet people, you know, when you're walking in the hallways or in class. They're the people that just don't speak up, and this is their opportunity to speak up. We're seeing a lot of different kinds of people from all backgrounds and all different opinions coming together for this one event, and I just think it's really incredible.
All right, thank you guys. Getting your point of view as our delegates and students continue to find their seats. We can look forward to seeing more interviews come in throughout the day with Rachel, who continues to bring in the discussion and get her point of view with the campaign managers, so something great to see there. It's overall just getting ready to recap. Every 4 years this goes on. It's a tradition here at North Penn, and for every 4 years it's something that amazing since 1976. We have many more platforms or planks in our platform getting ready to get underway. Criminal justice reform is still getting ready to get underway. Drug policy is already out of the way. The economy is something that was mainly discussed. But guns and the Second Amendment are something that's going to be important to get to as well, where we may get our most controversy and biggest buzz going down there on the floor. where we will continue to build off of those discussions between students, where we got Spencer and Skylar on down there on the floor, Rachel in here with us in the studio, and also Sophie Collins working on interviews in between each aisles and the seats. So we're going to send it back down to the floor where our next topic of discussion and plank gets underway. Let's listen in.
District that covers Lansdale Borough. Who's here from Lansdale Borough? Awesome. How about Hatfield Township? How about Hatfield Borough? All right, a couple, that's fine. So I'm your state representative. I actually love coming back to North Penn High School every single time, and it is amazing to be here, to see every single one of you participating in the political process, understanding what it is and how a convention runs. I've been listening to some of the debate. I'm extremely impressed with all the ideas that are coming out and all the platform ideas that are coming out. And you know what? It's okay for us to have disagreements, and it's okay for us to agree on a lot of things. And what you'll realize is that out of it, you'll have compromise. And that's not a dirty word. Compromise is a very good thing, and it's something that we all have to strive for in life. So I appreciate every single one of you being a part of this process. I want to say thank you to Mr. Haley. Thank you so much. And some of the other teachers in the audience that I saw, Mr. McCreary in the back, and also a former educator, Mr. Finnemeyer in the back. Thank you so much for allowing this to happen. Shout out to Alexis and Rachel for doing this. This is a great, great audience to have and a great event for all of you to be a part of. So thank you so much. Have fun today. Learn a lot, and look forward to seeing you in the district. Take care.
Good morning. So today, now. Oh.
Just want to get the clicker.
Oh, okay.
There it is.
So this platform is climate change. As most of you know, climate change is the heating of the Earth's overall temperature. It is caused by greenhouse gases emitted to in the atmosphere. The effects of climate change include rising sea levels, which really affects our coastal cities and areas. Animal species are dying at an exceeding rate, and we will have less resources as climate change continues on. To fight this crisis, the UN created the Paris Agreement for each country to lower their carbon emissions, but it should be noticed that the US did leave. And the Democratic position on climate change is to try to prevent it. Anyway, we'll be going to mic 2. Oh.
So I think this is perhaps the most important issue for us because this is something that will affect all of us in the prime of our lives. This is not something for our children or grandchildren. This is for us. So I think we need to act now, and I think Elizabeth Warren is the best one to do that because she has a plan right now that can be put into action. So she wants to grow the clean energy sector to create jobs and have 100% clean energy by 2030 so that all of our electricity is produced emissions-free by 2035. This is the kind of ambitious goal that we need to be able to stop climate change. She also wants to renew our infrastructure to create jobs and to make sure that future environmental disasters are prevented. Because this isn't just about climate change, this is about the environment as a whole. She wants to create 10.5 million green jobs to make sure that this doesn't hurt the economy. This is the kind of plan we need to keep this from destroying us in the future and to stop this from destroying our future in the prime of our lives. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to mic 1.
Okay. Yo, we have not had a snow day this whole year. It's January, and it's raining, it's 50 degrees. Like, we need to do something about climate change. We need to bring back snow days. Like, where are they at? We have not had a 2-hour delay or nothing. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Mic 3.
Hi. So according to some 2017 figures, 71% of global emissions are caused by 100 corporations. So like that's kind of scary to me. I think that the individual efforts are really, really good. Like, you know, save the turtles, no plastic straws, all that. But I think that this needs to be addressed on a much larger scale. No scientist knows the full effects of what the climate's going to do to us, but I don't want to be part of the generation that has to figure that out.
Thank you. Mic 5.
Hello? Hello. Okay. So let's be real. Climate change is a real thing. There is no denying the effects that it has had on so many different communities. We have seen, especially the past couple of years, low-income communities, rural communities, indigenous communities, and communities belonging to people of color have been impacted from the problems of climate change. The United States should strive to show the world what we can do with clean and good energy. What we must do is look for new resources, because the truth is fossil fuels are non-renewable. We will run out of them. What we also need to do is take on the fossil fuel industries that makes millions of dollars from creation of stuff like oil and other things. We must implement a carbon tax so that they are paying their fair share. We must also attack the mega corporations that are destroying our environment. Thank you.
Mic 4.
Hi, I just want to say that I agree with all the other speakers when I say that climate change is a large problem. And it's a problem where we can't keep making small regulations and small changes. We need to make very massive changes, and we need to make them basically immediately. Thank you.
Mic 6.
We currently have really back in our discussion on climate change. Back to the studio here with North Penn Television's live coverage of the 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention. We're now going to get ready to send it over to another interview. We have another guest coming in who was just up at the platform. Mr. Steve Malagary, the state representative, is here with Rachel Allmark. Rachel, let's hear what you guys have.
Yes, I'm here with Steve Malagary, and we're going to talk about how your experience at North Penn and why you keep coming back and why you think the convention is important.
Well, Rachel, thank you for having me, and I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you. This convention is actually very important. It's part of the democratic process. It's something where you can actually identify a platform and you can talk about the different issues and debate them and come out finally at the end of it with an idea and with a platform going forward to lead policy and make sure you have policy discussion, and on top of that come out with a candidate finally.
Can you talk about what your expectations were for the day and how it kind of lived up to them?
It's something that I haven't seen before. I was a student here, but I wasn't able to participate when I was here. But I've seen the coverage of it before a while ago, and over the years I've been cued into what it looked like and watched it. So it's kind of what the expectation was, where you have each state represented, and everyone from those states, those delegates, are here to talk about their policy platforms, and each state has a difference in what they're looking for, and their interests and needs are different too. So it was interesting to see how it was all set up, and it's very accurate to what you would find either in a Young Republicans or Young Democratic convention, or even at the state and federal level as well.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for your time. We're going to throw it back to Eric at the desk.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rachel, and thank you for joining us in the studio today, Mr. Steve Malagary. And before we let you go, I had a quick question regarding some of the conversations you have going on down there in the floor, getting to step up to the platform and shout out a bunch of the people who continue to discuss and bring this convention even to higher heights and continue the discussion. You mentioned Mr. Finnemeyer. What can you say about Mr. Haley and Mr. Finnemeyer, who got this ball rolling and created what the convention is now today?
It's great for them to be able to do this and continue the tradition that's been going on since, I don't even know how many years now, but as long as I can remember. And in any case, one of the things I like to tell them is, continue with the tradition and thank you for doing it. It's important that the student body and everybody involved, even some of the educators here and support professionals, witness what happens in a convention. And this is a really good representation of how the democratic process is and what it should be. So shout out to them again, Mr. Finnemeyer and Mr. Haley, for doing this. This is fantastic.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now let you get back down to the floor where the discussion continues to ramp up. So thank you for joining us today, Mr. Steve Malugari. And now jumping back down to the floor, we're going to get a quick recap of what the discussion has been recently on the topic of climate change. We heard a couple speakers. We're now going to check in with Spencer and Skylar down there on the floor. What's the conversation been going on? Any key notes you've heard so far in the discussion while we were interviewing Mr. Malugari?
Well, the general consensus seems to be that a lot of people think that we should do something about climate change. They're bringing up things like we haven't had snow days or how warm it is. So I think this is another issue that students can relate to because they can feel the temperature outside. They can physically feel that and be able to relate their general opinions on it. So there's generally a consensus going on. I'm interested to see if that continues happening. I do see standing up to the mic is Joe Biden's campaign manager. He is somebody that we haven't heard from yet, so I think the students will be very interested to hear his perspective.
So we're definitely going to jump back to Spencer in just a moment. We're going to listen to Joe Biden's campaign manager. Let's listen in right now to see what he has to say.
As many previous speakers have said, corporations are a big part of the problem. They're the ones, the industrial side of them are the ones who are emitting a lot of these fossil fuels. And I think we should put a major focus on shifting the industry to more renewable energy. We have like thousands of acres of corn and soybeans out in the Midwest. How hard is it to put in a couple like wind farms? And the US is a major world player. And if we were able to shift to renewable energy, that would show a lot of other countries that this is something that can be done and should be done. There are countries out there who are very near, or if not already at 100% renewable energy. So it can be done. It's harder for us because we're a bigger country, but we can still do it. Unfortunately, I'm too young. I won't be able to vote in the upcoming presidential election, and I'm not telling you who you should vote for, but I do think that whoever you vote for, you should keep in mind that climate change is a real thing, and it is a major problem, and whatever your candidate may be should hopefully address it in some way. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to mic 2.
Hello, I'm the campaign manager for Tom Steyer, and I want to tell you why you should vote for him. Okay, he has tackled climate change for a long time. While he is a billionaire, unlike many others, he actually cares about the environment. He's donated so much money and founded programs to make sure that young people know about this problem, because he knows and he looks to the future, because he acknowledges that we're the ones that are going to have to fix this. He's an older man, and he's not going to be around when this really comes full circle, and we're all going to have to deal with this. So that is why you should vote for Tom Steyer. Thank you.
Okay, that's enough. That's all the time that we have for climate change for today. I'm sorry, just don't have enough time for it.
All right, bringing it back now to the studio, wrapping up and going to take a recap of climate change being discussed and our 5th plank on the day here in our 13th total planks in our platform of discussions where students continue to bring up their perspectives, views, and values on many of the topics being discussed. We still have 8 more to go, so let's now check in with Spencer and Skylar. Skylar, we were talking a little bit about what's been like down there on the floor. Spencer, now, what's the recap you have from this past conversation, the topic of climate change, and where even some campaign managers were getting up and representing their candidates as well?
So there may not be as many student involvement, but there have been 4 campaign managers that have talked about this issue, the most of any issue so far. That's definitely a big thing to note, that many campaign managers are very much noticing that climate change is a thing they want to talk about and a thing they have their opinion on. There was Elizabeth Warren, who was a plan to set up, make it a larger scale, make more jobs, make everything green and more efficient for the planet. And there was Cory Booker and Joe Biden also talking. There's just a lot of big ideas coming up, and it definitely shows how they have their each distinctive ideas about climate change, and now it's a big idea that could affect the next generations to come.
And any specific word you're hearing down there from the states and the delegates and students there in between the aisles and at the seats where, they're continuing to step up and discuss at the microphone, but perhaps are you hearing anything going on where you have conversation being brought up? Perhaps any yay or nays you're hearing so far down there on the floor? Skylar, are you hearing any of that kind of discussion going on?
I'm not necessarily hearing a lot of background discussion. Everybody seems pretty attentive to the speakers. It's an issue that they seem to really care about. But I do keep hearing the same point is being brought up at the microphone. We need to do something about this. And we don't want to be, our generation, we don't want to be the one to have to fix this, I guess, that they're implying that the campaign managers and the candidates themselves should be doing something about this because they don't want the responsibility of solving climate change to fall back on us. So I can see a lot of people very attentive as to what's going on at the microphone.
Great input there on this topic of climate change. As you mentioned, the actual campaign managers stepping up a little bit more to the microphone. We got to catch a bunch of them here in the studio with interviews with Rachel, but getting to hear them down on the floor in front of the students and delegates, that's the most important factor where we start getting to the elections, nominations, and the biggest talking points where we're going to have the most back and forth. And hopefully those candidates find their way into the right side of the voting once we get into that later on in the day. So real quick before we let you guys go, Spencer and Skylar, we got many more topics coming up, 8 more to go total here in the planks and topics of discussion in our platform. Perhaps what's one you're looking at, maybe sitting back, grabbing a bag of popcorn and watching unfold in front of you? Is there anything specific you're looking at?
So there is one coming up that will affect most individuals, especially those that are turning 18 in the next coming months and the year, is elections. And there are many big things that you may learn about in your government classes, such as gerrymandering. But the elections very affect us because the next coming up presidential election, most will be able to vote, if not all, they're of the senior class. So many of them are interested on how we're going to vote, how voting is going to affect us, and how the whole process, especially with the big deal of electoral college and popular vote. So that's definitely an idea I'd like to see and see how the students really apply that and see how energized they get in the room.
And Skylar, you mentioned a little bit about the electric going on. Real quick before we draw it back to the floor, talk about the electricity going back and forth. What are you looking forward to kind of seeing as our plans continue to ramp up?
I'm really looking forward to seeing people's opinions on healthcare. I know a lot of the candidates themselves have very strong opinions on healthcare, and the real debates, it's a very hot topic of contention. So I'm really interested to see if that passion is going to translate to our mock convention here.
All right, great to hear. And right on cue, we'll now send it back down to the floor where healthcare insurance gets ready to get underway in our next plank and topic of discussion. Let's take it back to the convention and listen in on the floor.
Insurance. Insulin prices are on the rise. The cost of living with any chronic illness is impossible to keep up with if you don't have insurance. And I think it's really important that we pay attention to people that have chronic illnesses because it's impossible to keep up with. And I think it's only fair that everyone has the ability to live a healthy life where they don't have to just pay to survive.
All right. Thank you. Mike 6.
Hi, so while I would love to support universal health care and it seems like a great idea, I have to worry about what's going to happen to the doctors. My mom's an optometrist and she gets so little money from the government insurance that it's not even worth her taking, so she just doesn't take it. It's just not worth it. So what's going to happen to our doctors who can't afford now to go to medical school because they're going to be under crippling loans after medical school because they can't pay it because they have to accept this government insurance?
All right, thank you. Mike 3.
Is this on? Yes. Hi. So I think
something that's really important that Mike 5 actually brought up is holding drug companies responsible for the amount of money that they're charging for life-saving drugs like insulin. Like, whoever would expect someone to pay sometimes upwards of $500 for a single vial of insulin? For example, in the UK, insulin prices are half or less of what they are here. I have personal friends who have diabetes. The speaker in Mike 5, for example, had diabetes. And insurance is sometimes hard to come by, and it costs a lot of money. I think that just because something might not provide a lot of coverage doesn't mean that it's useless. There are tons of people who could be covered just from a little bit of healthcare. Universal healthcare, I think, is incredibly important, but the drug companies are really the ones that need to be held responsible.
All right, thank you. All right, Mike 2.
Yeah, so I totally agree with her. So pharmaceutical, the United States is one of the highest payers. We put the most money inside of our healthcare system, but yet our prices are still so high. So what we have to do is control and understand that we need to control the pharmaceutical industry. And a lot of part of that is that the pharmaceutical industry has a giant hand in our politics today. They are lobbying our politicians and paying them off in order to satisfy their own needs, in order to produce profit. So what we have to do is we have to stop those pharmaceutical industries and get those companies out of our politics. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike 1.
Hi. So accessing basic care in this country is nearly impossible. People like Senator Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have been taking people to Canada and other countries simply so they can get an EpiPen, which is supposed to counteract allergic reactions. It costs upwards of like $600 here, whereas in other countries, maybe $50. And along the lines with that, healthcare needs to be affordable for everyone. There's nothing more that needs to be said. We can look to other countries for examples like the United Kingdom, which has NHS, and they have affordable healthcare for everyone. Actually, it's free. And though their system might be flawed, I feel like if we begin to model after them or use their model, we can start to make lives a little bit better here in America.
All right, thank you. Mike 4.
I want to talk about something a little bit different that pertains to healthcare. I want to talk about abortion and women's rights. I feel like women should have the right to choose what they do with their bodies, and I don't think the government should be regulating what they do. I know there's people in this country who want to take away and repeal Roe versus Wade, but that is not right, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up with women performing their own abortions, which is unsafe and it's going to die. So if we want to make a better country, we support women and we support their choice to choose.
All right, thank you. Really quick, before we move on to Mike 5, again, we appreciate hearing all viewpoints, but this is specifically about healthcare and not abortion. Yes, I absolutely understand that abortion is definitely a big part of the healthcare debate. However, since there's really not a lot of room for debate on this issue, we've determined beforehand that we're just going to stick to health, like more specifically healthcare. Okay, Mike 5.
I kind of find it messed up that people have to ration their insulin and you have to go to Canada for cheaper insulin. Also, I have a family member that takes Adderall, and a lot of my friends I know takes Adderall for the ADHD. But the cost for a 5 milligram for a supply of 100 tablets of Adderall is $744. While on the streets, I can get it for like 200s. Like, real talk. This is crazy.
And that will be the last speaker for the healthcare debate, unless there's a motion to extend, right? Okay, no motion to extend. Sorry about that. So Mike 6 will be our final speaker. I'm sorry.
Going back now, our discussion back to the studio here with North Penn Television's live coverage all day of the 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention. We now have another interview on hand here in the studio. Rachel Allmark now being joined by the campaign manager of Joe Biden, Lucas Kyle. Rachel, take it away.
Thank you, Eric. So can you just give us a rundown of why we should vote for Joe Biden?
So
he has many great plans, but what I'm going to focus on are his best two, which is climate change and his federal minimum wage. So Biden's plan is not, as in Warren's and Sanders' plans for climate change are 10, 15, 20 years in the future. He wants to do it now. He's planning to invest $400 billion by the end of his first term in climate change and renewable energy to help stop it. And by the end of his second term, if he's reelected, $1.7 trillion, and it'll be funded by the Trump tax cuts. And he also knows that $7.25 is not a livable wage for somebody that's an adult with kids, and it also draws in teens. So he wants to increase that to $15 because he knows that taxing the rich just incessantly does not work. You can't just throw big taxes and hope that the economy works. You need to give the money to the middle class to help strengthen it and bring it up to where everybody's talking about a 1% gap between the average person and the 1%ers who have a ton of wealth. This helps bring that closer. It helps bring people out of poverty into the middle class and the rich closer to the middle class so that you have a stronger middle class and the economy works better.
Awesome. Okay. Can you just give us a sense of how the convention feels down in the auditorium?
It's bigger than anything I've ever done. I've only given a speech to probably about 30 people, and there's so many people that are in the convention center, and it's kind of electric. I've never been somewhere with North Penn where you can say whatever you want because students are being able to voice whatever they want to say. And I think it's good for student-teacher relations that students feel that they're heard and they're able to say what they think is important.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks for the time for the interview. We're going to throw it back to Eric.
All right, thank you, Rachel and Lucas. Great questions there being asked, and the responses even better. They're in support as the campaign manager of Joe Biden. Lucas Kyle joining us in the studio. And you talked about they're taking a step back as the students overall getting to voice their opinions where many events at North Penn, you're not really able to do so. So getting to talk about those discussions and topics such as those. Spencer and Skylar, we're going to check in now with you on the floor. Building off of what Lucas Kyle kind of talked about, where students are able to voice their opinions for really maybe in some cases the first time, where you have government classes where you're not able to really talk about these kind of subjects, but now in front of a majority and minority who may support or disagree, your topic and your views are being heard. What does that do for a student here like at North Penn High School?
I think that's really big because in a lot of places, some students that are really active and they want to be politically active or voice their opinion with many things, they go to the clubs. They go to the Republican club, the Democrat club, or the political activism club. They get to go voice these things, but a lot of students don't have the time, or are too shy to do those things, and they're not to blame for that because it's a hard thing to do. But here, it's really remarkable how so many students stand up and voice their opinion in front of thousands of students, thousands of their peers, and you really see how these large issues affect many people in their lives, and they have different opinions on it and how to change them and how to make the world a better place.
All right, same kind of topic here to Skylar. You're part of the Night Crier class as well, where it's the student-run journalism class. As one of those students being on hand and able to voice your opinion through, the websites and the journalistic attributes, what does this kind of do for you where you're here getting to report in and listen to many students who might not have the opportunity to let their voice be heard, where you might have the opportunity through paper and pen? What is it like this where students are able to step up to a microphone in front of people they know, many people they don't know, and voice their opinion?
I mean, it's pretty similar in the way that they're both like overwriting and in person you're able to express your views, but there's something pretty magical about seeing somebody speak their views, because when you're writing, you don't really feel that passion, you don't get that diction, their body language, the way that they're talking. But just watching these people voice their opinions in person, you can see how into it they're getting. So as a journalist, it's really cool to kind of see the flip side, because a lot of people have comments on articles, they'll have reactions, but you can only see what they write. Here you can actually see how they feel, and that's just a really special moment for me.
All right, thank you, Skylar and Spencer. Great feedback there. As journalists, both of you guys are part of the Night Crier staff. Now we're going to draw it back here to the studio and kick it right back to the convention. We're on the floor. You just saw Sarah Weaver conducting a bit of the introductions to one of our main topics of discussion, where we're definitely going to have students stepping up to the microphone, gun control and the Second Amendment. Let's listen in now.
They waited out for a couple months and we don't do anything. Like we still legalize like rifles and everything like that. Maybe we crack down a little bit more on the gun exchange, but we still need to do more. So.
Thank you. Microphone 4, please.
Did you say 4?
4.
All right, so I completely agree with that first statement that was said about illegalizing guns, because I have one fear, and one question to ask, and that is, does anybody know how people like Mao Zedong or Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler came into power? And it was actually by disarming everybody first and then going in and taking everybody out. So that's why I fear heavily for that, and I feel that there should be heavier regulations on guns. That's that.
Thank you. Microphone 5, please.
Do you say number 5? Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right. So it is said from researchers at the University of San Diego, estimated more than 750,000 guns were purchased in the United States between 2010 and 2012 to be smuggled into Mexico. Of the 132,000 guns recovered at crime scenes in Mexico from 2009 to 2018, fully 70% were found to have originated in the United States. ARs and AK-47s and other weapons of wars. In 2018, Mexico saw 20,000 gun homicides, nearly 7 times as many in 2003. How will the United States stop guns from entering Mexico and into criminals' hands?
Thank you. Microphone 6, please.
Is this okay? So what everyone agrees on is we need to keep guns out of the hands of those who are a danger to themselves and a danger to others. A majority of people support universal background checks because it keeps guns out of the hands of dangerous people, and that's a reasonable thing to believe. But what Cory Booker says we need to do is to expand it into gun licensing. If you need a license to drive a car, you need a license to own a gun. That's a pretty reasonable thing to believe. And it seems like keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous criminals is the most reasonable thing to believe, and that is what, when we're speaking about gun control, that's what we should be focusing on.
Thank you. Microphone 3, please.
I feel as though regardless of you owning a gun and saying, oh, I hunt, that's why I own a gun. Regardless, maybe your reason for your gun is nothing to do with another person's life, but how do you know your next door neighbor that owns a gun isn't going to go ahead and use that for horrible things? You don't know. And at the end of the day, I have a little sister who's 8 years old, and I think so often about Sandy Hook that I would cry knowing I could lose my little sister or knowing that she could lose me here. It's terrifying, and it's everywhere. It's schools, it's malls, it is everywhere. And you don't know what somebody is going to do with what they have. It's a mask. Somebody can pretend, somebody can lie, and somebody can be crazy and do horrible things, regardless of whether they say their intentions are for.
Thank you. Microphone 2, please.
So I think that banning guns entirely isn't a viable option at all, especially in America. But I think that there are certain types of people who should not be able to own guns. People with a history of domestic abuse, child abuse, assault and battery, hate crimes. These people should be looked at carefully when they're trying to buy or own a gun, because that's a serious indicator that they may not be safe with that gun.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
I personally feel that guns are just an add-on to the actual problem. See, like years ago when my parents were in school, they didn't have these problems. They had less gun control laws and didn't have school shootings. The problem is the people in society now, the way they're being raised and how sensitive they are. It's the fact that people can't just like take things and just not act on them. Like, I do agree that at this point now, because of other people and because like it is starting to get dangerous, we should have gun control, more strict gun control laws, but not exactly ban them in general, because it's the people. We had less gun control laws like 30 years ago, no gun shootings, so.
Okay. Thank you. Microphone 4, please.
Incredible insight there, reeling it back to the studio from the topics of discussions as students and delegates continue to step up and continue our conversation going on there, down there on the floor in our 7th of 13 total planks in our platform until 11 o'clock. Now joining us back in the studio, we're going to reel back in. Rachel Olmark back here once again with another campaign manager. She's representing Amy Klobuchar. Who do you have for us today, Rachel?
I have Elijah Slayton here. and she's just going to talk about her candidate, Amy Klobuchar. So first off, what do North Penn students need to know about her?
Well, first you should probably know that while she is running on the Democratic ticket, she does have a lot more of the moderate policies that you see throughout this entire convention, and she honestly represents more of what the American public stands for, rather than some of the more extreme candidates that we have. So, yeah.
How does her policies apply to North Penn students, and why should they vote for her?
Well, they should definitely vote for her because all of the policies that she wants to enact are more inclined to make greater change in our lifetime, not just her lifetime, but our lifetime and everybody else that comes after us.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for taking the time to interview with us. We're going to throw it back to the desk. Take it away, Eric.
All right, thank you, Rachel, and thank you once again, Elijah, for joining us in the studio today to give us a piece of what Amy Klobuchar overall represents and also what you've been seeing down there on the floor throughout today's festivities. So thank you for joining us, and now we're going to check back in on the floor. We're going to tune in now to Spencer Halval and Skylar Simpson, who have been giving us plenty of feedback and overall look and view into the values and the discussion going on between students. We're going to check in once again as one of the most forwarding and looking forward to topics got underway, the Second Amendment and gun policy. Spencer and Skylar, what's been the discussion in recent conversation down there?
So obviously this is a very sensitive issue because it has affected many people before, and it's through the media you see a lot of school shootings, and it's obviously a horrible thing that nobody wants to happen. But there are a lot of issues on how to solve that and how to reduce those issues are definitely come in some variation, but a lot of consensus. The big one is not ban guns at all, but to show that we need to put more restrictions on it. There's been many students that have came up and said that idea, and it's almost, I would not like to say universal, but it's very agreed upon that we need to make a difference and change something because many students feel that we should not be living in the way how it is.
I appreciate the insight there, Spencer. Thank you for letting us hear about what exactly has been going on. Skylar, we'll get back to you in the next kind of plank we get into, because right now we still and continue to have students coming up, continue to represent their views and values. We want to make sure we hear them. So let's now check back into the floor where students and delegates continue their conversation. Let's take in and listen in.
Saw it. He came strapped and just shot him down. Nobody died. And I get the whole kid thing. That's really sad. I don't want, I have a 10-year-old brother. He's in elementary school. It's sad. But I mean, at the end of the day, if it were to happen, would you rather have them wish that they finished their coloring book or knew how to do something about it to protect their life? It's sad that it has to be that way, but I'm sorry, it's not the gun's fault, it's our fault. Thank you.
Thank you.
What?
Next up is Rachel with Criminal Justice. No, the next slide. Where's the, oh.
Hi, everyone. So our next topic is criminal justice reform. And basically, the criminal justice system is the system of law enforcement that is involved in prosecuting and punishing those who are suspected or convicted of criminal offenses. And to reform something is to make changes to something in order to improve it. So a lot of people think the criminal justice system needs to be reformed because the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world. We are home to 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's incarcerated people. Today, roughly 2.2 million people are behind bars in the United States, an increase of 1.9 million since 1972. And this incarceration rate disproportionately affects people of color. Latinx adults are 3 times more likely to be incarcerated than whites. For the same crimes, Black Americans are more likely than whites to be arrested, charged, wrongfully convicted, and given harsher sentences. 1 in 10 Black children has an incarcerated parent. So there are many plans that the candidates today have come up with to help combat these statistics, and some of that is changing drug legislation, but I want to refrain from talking about that because we had a lot of time to talk about that earlier. and then reforming policies that lead to the incarceration of children, reforming prison conditions, and making sure they are humane, and advocating for rational policies that would reduce the social and economic impact of mass incarceration. And before we get started, please be mindful that this topic may hit close to home for a lot of people in this room, so please be respectful while voicing your ideas and beliefs. Thank you. Okay, number 2. Yeah, mic number 2. That's you. Yeah. Oh, no?
Am I 2?
Yeah.
Okay. So, nicotine age, they raised to 21. You have to be an adult, which is apparently 21 now.
Mm-hmm.
So why not say you're not an adult until you're 21? When you're 18, whatever records you have, your slate gets swiped and it's a new start. I say that they should raise that so they're not so much worried about what our younger generation is doing and getting in trouble, because honestly, whatever we're getting in trouble doing is just stupid. I feel like we should worry more about the people that are already in jail and working to get out of jail, people that are working towards our criminal justice system to find loopholes. Those are the type of people that deserve to be in jail.
Okay, thank you. Okay, microphone number 3.
All right. So why is it that, like, when we talk about the criminal justice system, that we aren't talking about the root causes of people, of a lot of people that are going to prisons? Why aren't we talking about mental illness? We pretty much don't talk about it at all, which we expect these people to go because they're sick, go to a mental institution to get better, and then we're still going to throw them in jail for something they're not responsible for. How is that fair? They had an illness that caused them to do whatever they did.
Thank you. Okay, microphone number 6.
I would like to talk about the issue of for-profit prisons. How can we expect our prisoners to reform when the prisons are trying to keep them in order to make a profit? There is no idea of reform for the prisoners because the prisons that keep them there have no interest in the prisoners getting out of prison and being like reintroduced into society.
Thank you. Okay. Number 5, please.
There needs to be better care in prison for women. There are bills being passed now because women aren't getting hygiene care. There are no tampons for women. There are women getting TSS because they aren't getting proper hygiene. There's no way for them to get any doctor's care at all. There are women giving birth in prison on the floor, and then their baby is separated from them right away. How is it that a woman can be screaming in pain for hours while she's in labor and no one hears her, but the second her baby is on the floor with her, someone pays attention? Then there are people who are in jail for petty marijuana crimes, but then a rapist can get out in a few months. When Kim Kardashian starts being able to meet with the president and granting people clemency, you know there's something wrong with our government.
Thank you. Okay, so done? Okay, so because of time, we have to end this discussion. I'm really sorry. We don't have the time. I'm really sorry. The next topic is about elections.
Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great time till now. The topic that we'll be discussing now is funding of our electoral campaigns. First of all, what are elections? Election is an event which takes place so that we, the citizens of the United States, could vote for our representatives. One person is equal to one vote to our representative which we want. But now, the way that we're funding our elections, that has not been possible. Now we can say that $1 million is equal to one vote. in the past 2 years, we have spent more than $3.3 billion on election, and last year we had spent $2.4 billion just on our presidential election. The big companies, corporates, businesses directly fund the assets to the campaigns which they want them to win. But the campaigns which have less funds, they are at a disadvantage. The campaigns with higher funds have a great advantage towards them as to the other campaigns. They advertise more frequently and natively to spread their word. They can hold shows and events to make sure their word spreads and they can get the maximum amount of votes. Mic number 3.
Oh. Okay,
Number
well,
3.
Sorry. Well, basically, you have corporations funding a lot of our politics today. Like, in order to run a campaign, it costs an insane amount of money. Like, for the last quarter of the presidential election, like, I think it was like $300 million total raised, and they're going to spend all of that money. So I want you to think, if you have, say, BP Oil funding a candidate, do you really think that candidate is going to enact meaningful climate change legislation? If you have, say, Pete Buttigieg taking $100,000 from the healthcare industry, is he going to really reform the healthcare industry? If you have Cory Booker taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry, is he going to really work to cut their profits and lower the costs? So right now you have a government that is not working for normal people. You have a government that is working for the people who have the most money and can buy the elections, basically. And any candidate who is taking money...
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Mic number 6.
Okay, I want to talk about gerrymandering. I imagine a lot of people wouldn't know what that is, but it's basically when congressional districts are drawn unfairly by the party in power so that the party in power stays in power. Now, that was a big problem in Pennsylvania because it was like the majority of people voted Democrat, but then like 70% of the people elected to Congress in 2016 were Republican. So it's a big problem, and it was so bad in this state that courts actually had to order the redrawing of the maps. So it's something that has to be looked at because it's representatives choosing their voters, not voters choosing their representatives.
Thank you. Mic number 1. This would be our last.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about election safety, which is a very important issue because we need to make sure that our votes are being counted correctly, and I think that the solution is actually quite simple. A lot of people want to have a lot of new technology, but really here what we need to mandate is paper ballots so that every person marks on a piece of paper who they're voting for, and then you have a track of who they voted for. You can make sure that it's not being influenced by Russia or some other country. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that would conclude the topic of elections and the conversation going down there between students and delegates. Stepping up to the microphone once again in our platform aspect of today's festivities in the 2020 Democratic Stimulated Convention. And for Spencer and Skylar, throwing it back now to them on the floor at the desk, we have multiple people stepping up and discussing where we talk about the campaign managers being one of the main enforcers, one of the main people you want to see step up in conversation. Tom Steyer, the campaign manager, being represented by Xander Mallon, stepped up for the 4th time today. What does that impact have where these campaign managers are stepping up in support of their candidates in the eyes of the students and delegates down there on the floor?
You've definitely seen that the people that are willing to step up more and talk more are getting more attention. The campaign managers for Tom Steyer and Cory Booker look like the two that have stepped up the most and have gotten the most attention on almost every single issue. And that shows how they are more involved. And when it comes down to voting later in the day, it seems like more delegates more be interested in those because they have heard those voiced opinions. So the more you talk, the more attention you bring to yourself. So it may bring a big factor when voting in later.
All right, and Skylar, with the election topic officially wrapping up down there, what's the buzz you've been seeing as we get ready to jump into our next plank? 20 minutes left on the clock till 11 o'clock, our kind of intermission. But as nominations get ready to get underway, the voting very soon to be on the horizon. what have you been seeing down there on the floor? The biggest takeaways we've seen from our total plank so far?
I think that voting has been a very big issue since the entire reason that we're having this delegation is to vote. So people want to make sure that their votes are being counted correctly and accurately. People want to use their voice to advocate for who they want to win, and they want to make sure that happens. Another big buzz with elections has been funding electoral campaigns. There's a lot of discussion about how much money you get for your campaign and how that affects your performance and where you get your money. So those were like the two main things that they covered in elections. It was definitely an issue with a lot of buzz.
All right, great to hear. Thanks for your insight once again down there on the floor. For us back in the studio, we're going to digest some of the things going on in just a few moments with Rachel Allmark, who's been holding the interviews, and Sophie Collins as well, just before we head to our intermission and get the voting underway. But now jumping back to the floor and where our topic and discussion continues to unfold in front of us on the television screen. Foreign policy is now on the topic of discussion. Let's listen in now.
Something to do that. Also, what's happening in China right now? A lot of people, thousands of people are protesting their rights, and the Chinese government is beating them down. They're using tear gas. I've seen videos of kids, little as 10 years old, getting beaten down by police. They're unarmed. So is there any way that America would help China with what's happening right now? Yeah, Chinese civilians.
Okay, thank you. Microphone one. Microphone one.
In this current moment in China, there are thousands and thousands of Muslims in concentration camps, just like what we read in our history books right now of the Nazis murdering and treating people based on their beliefs. This is such a hard topic to talk about. It is a crime against humanity for a mass murder of any people based on their beliefs, and America needs to do something about this problem, because if it is not checked right now, it's going to grow, and there will be really big problems if it's not changed sooner than later.
Okay, thank you. Microphone five. Mic five.
A lot of you guys don't know, but they're putting hundreds of thousands of Chinese Muslims into camps and literally forcing them to change their beliefs on being Muslim, or else they're going to be beaten to death, starved to death. People are being raped in these camps. This is so inhumane, and we're doing nothing about it. Just like how in World War II we didn't do nothing until the Japanese attacked us, literally.
Okay, thank you. Microphone six.
Does anyone know when lunch is?
Lunch is in like 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Microphone three.
So.
Is that? Go on to the next one.
All right. So I think China is really heavily investing in the next technologies for like the next 10 years in like artificial intelligence and like property theft of a lot of what we're doing. So I think we have a role to play in making sure that we're investing in new technologies so that we can keep up with China, who is investing in these technologies, so that a country like China, who is abusing human rights, isn't the head of the world stage in the next 10 years.
Thank you. Now we are going to move on to the Russia section of our foreign policy. So Russia, some controversy was there because they interfered in the 2016 election to support a certain candidate. Russia has also recently invaded Crimea and annexed it, and they're trying to invade Ukraine. We're currently backing the Ukrainian rebels to fight off Russia. So if anyone would like to say anything about Russian foreign policy, please come up. Mic 4.
Foreign policy regarding Russia should be that of pressure and shame. We need to look down upon the Russian actions of aggression against the Ukrainian and Crimean people. And if the Democrat was to be put in office, a Democratic president would need to stop being in Russia's pocket, try and bring American companies manufacturing in Russia home, and focus on the fact that Russia is committing war crimes with these aggressions.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Hello. So the way Cory Booker sees it is that we should not let other countries invade our elections. They should not choose our elections. They should not invade our elections, and they don't choose our president. We choose our president. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
Me.
We need to put our foot down on the Chinese. Quiet! Their control of our media is a disgrace to democracy as we know it. If we are to have a democratic president, they must put their foot down. If China tries to censor our stuff, China can go
Okay, thank you.
mess itself.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm sorry, but we have to move on to Syria now. So there's currently a civil war in Syria. There's 4 factions that are fighting for territory and control of Syria. One of them is the Syrian government under Assad. He is a war criminal and has killed many of his own citizens. The U.S. backs a rebel group in Syria known as the Syrian Democratic Forces, and some other groups like ISIS control some territory there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So some people have proposed that we withdraw troops completely from Syria because they say that the wars are never ending and that it's just going to kill American troops for something that doesn't matter. And a lot of other people oppose this position. So, here, Mike 2. Mike 2.
I would like to criticize the foreign policy of both the Democrats and Republicans in Syria. Both parties have authorized drone strikes, which have killed thousands of civilians. For example, Barack Obama drone strike a hospital and a wedding in Iraq, I believe. And President Trump currently just launched a drone strike against the Iranian general, and now Iran's all pissed off at us. So, since I'm representing Bernie Sanders wants a more, less aggressive or hawkish policy, since less people will die. Thank you.
Thanks. Microphone 4.
This is a completely relevant topic, seeing as literally within the past 24 hours, we have literally come in to a, it's my bad. We are like minutes away from declaring war on Iran, and it's just one symptom of a failed policy that's lasted for decades. We went to war with Afghanistan in 2001, 2 months after I was born. We have been at war since then. That war has lasted longer than most of us have been alive. Where are we in that war today? The Taliban controls 70% of Afghanistan. We have failed in Afghanistan. We have failed in Iraq, seeing that it is dominated by Iran. And with Iran, we are failing against them. We have to take a step back and look at our policy and see that what we are doing in the Middle East is not working, it is not helping, it is hurting people and just causing more instability.
Thank you. Microphone 6. Microphone 6.
Piggybacking off what he said, I see a lot of memes on World War III, and I just wanted to know, is that happening? Like, can anyone answer that question?
We're not here to answer questions. Microphone 6.
Oh, good. All right, good talk. Thank you.
Yeah, 6.
Wait. Okay, so to briefly touch on that, so we killed the second in command of Iran last night, basically the equivalent of vice president. So we are not, guys, that is a major world event. So I can't say whether a World War III would happen. I doubt, I don't know. But I'm just saying that that was a major event that we should probably be aware of. Okay, and then for my comment on Syria, I think that what we did with the Kurds was disgraceful. We swore to protect them, and then we abandoned them. And when I heard about that, I was ashamed to be American in the moment because we abandoned our allies that we said we would protect.
Thank you.
In the moment, okay?
Thank you. That concludes our discussion of these parts. Sorry.
Hello and good morning, delegates. My name is Emily Conrad. So, ever since World War II, nuclear weapons have been a question related to foreign policy. So much so that our relationship with other countries depend on it. Primarily China, North Korea, Iran, and Russia are a part of the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, which is designed to stop nuclearization and support peaceful usage of nuclear power instead of nuclear weapons. So the question is, with all tensions at an all-time high, should the U.S. have nuclear weapons, and if so, at what standards? So we can start with mic number 2.
Okay. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty has been effective since 1970. We are one of the people who are leaders in this treaty. However, North Korea has since backed away from it, and the only way that we're going to achieve denuclearization is if we stop attacking them over Twitter. We cannot have petty arguments between leaders. That's not going to get us anywhere. We need to make actual...
Drawing back to the studio now with the nuclear weapon and that conversation getting underway in our next plank. We're going to take a look and check in with Spencer and Skylar, recapping the foreign policy topic being discussed by many students chipping into the conversation. Some very supportive of certain standpoints and views they have, so that those perspectives were worthwhile and making much noise down there on the floor. China, Russia, Syria, those foreign policies were visited. Spencer and Skylar, what were you guys seeing down there? And overall, what can you recap and take away from those topic points?
Shocking that overseas and away from our country you see so many big issues, including today there was big news on what happened over in Iran. But there are many students that are, one, worried about what's going to happen to our nation and the involvement of our war and whether it's good for our soldiers or not. And you see there's a lot of students that are very involved in this. Shockingly, how it's overseas, it's not in our nation. So it's very good to see students that are involved and worried about other nations and not just ourselves. So it was really good to see all the students.
All right, Skylar, real quick before we jump back into nuclear weapons, your takeaways from the foreign policy, 3 nations being visited, what were your takeaways overall from those conversation points?
I think my biggest takeaway is that no matter what opinion people had on how we should handle foreign countries, that everybody just wanted to come together and stay safe as our own country, that we want to... Some people were like, maybe we should look down on this country. Some people said we should be allies with this country. But the whole gist of that when it comes together is that we want to stay safe. And I think that shows a lot of community and allegiance. It's another way that we can all be brought together over such an important issue.
All right, thank you for your guys' input and building off of, we talk about safe and the relationships we have with other countries. Nuclear weapons is a part of the main aspect, and some of those conversation points, that's a discussion going on right now down on the floor. Let's now check into the discussion going on back down on the floor.
We still need nuclear weapons. I think we should decrease the amount, but honestly, I don't trust North Korea to completely denuclearize, even if they agree to it. Nuclear weapons are the only thing keeping the fat baby man from killing us all, so I kind of want to keep him in place.
Good point, thank you. Delegate on mic number 2.
Hello. I support a form of nuclear dismemberment. I'm personally not a fan of nuclear weapons and the extremely large amount of death and destruction that they can cause. But personally, since I don't think any other country would dare step towards that, we must make the first move. And I understand a lot of people are afraid to make that move because they're afraid, well, if we don't have nuclear weapons, then if everybody else does, they could just attack us. But I feel like even if we were, I don't think that would happen. I don't think anybody would dare to use it knowing what had happened at the tail end of World War II with us dropping nuclear bombs on Japan and seeing just how destructive they can be.
Thank you, Delegate. Last one, we'll go to mic number 6.
2 hours. 2 hours is all it would take from the minute a nuclear weapon was fired first to the complete sterilization of all life on Earth. That is not something that we should live with over our heads. In 1962, in the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, 2 out of 3 of the senior officers on a Soviet nuclear submarine agreed to fire the missiles. 1 didn't. He locked himself in his quarters with a gun aimed at the door, holding that key. If he had failed in what he did, we would not be here today. It is an affront to humanity that we have to live with these weapons in existence, that not just us, but all life on Earth could perish in a matter of hours. And I think the United States should take steps to help the world move away from these weapons.
Thank you. Up next will be, what is it? Slavery reformation. Oh, no. Slavery reformation with Ash.
Hello, my name's Ansh Sharma, and the idea of slavery reparations has recently become more mainstream as a policy. The Democratic Party is aware of the issue of untreated and undiagnosed trauma. Statistically, African Americans have higher rates of heart disease and high blood pressure, and these reparations could come in many forms: monetary reparations and mental health reparations. Resources could either be given to individual families, or the government could put more resources in the communities affected the most. So we can have speakers up now. Mic 3.
Okay. Hello. When I first saw slavery reparations, I first thought of the 300 years of our free labor. I first thought of money. The first thing that came to my mind was not my mental health. The first thing that came to my mind was how America benefited off of us, and I thought we were going to finally get a thank you. I thought that the 300 years of our free labor was going to get reprimanded. I thought monetary compensations should have been the first thing on this paper and not my mental health. I'm affected mentally by slavery, but the traumas of slavery don't affect me as much as the traumas of being in America today. The fact that we have high blood pressure and we go through all these traumas is not because of slavery, it's because my heart is racing standing in front of all you guys today, not because of slavery. So when you want to give us reparations for mental health, you can take slavery out of the equation, because our problems and our traumas are because of today. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. If we could keep the comments or statements kind of short, because we want to get to lunch too. Thank you. Speaker 6, Mic 6.
It is true that African American families make less than the typical white family or Asian American family. There needs to be an element to stop the perpetual cycle of black poverty. And government handouts are not the solution. Giving out money with no direct purpose is a recipe for failure. What we need to do is show support for our African American entrepreneurs, our African American innovators, and our African American business owners. These are the individuals who continue to make this country the most powerful, the most productive, and the greatest nation on the face of this earth. Thank you.
2 more. Can we have Mic 4? And then.
I believe that slavery reparations extend beyond monetary and mental health reparations. We need to initiate reforms at the educational level. This takes the form of teachers not sugarcoating realities and teaching history as it is. Such instruction should be supplemented with conversations of diversity, so that way we can understand how to heal and move forward as a society. Such practices would cultivate a more tolerant, sensitive, and understanding generation.
Thank you. Can we get Mike? We're going to have 2 more speakers. So, Mic 2.
I'm going to keep it short, but first thing that came to mind for this topic, I'm going to piggyback off for another topic too, but nuclear warfare, they were used only for leverage. That is the only reason why we have them, is for leverage. First thing that came to my mind for slavery was a lot of things, but it was mainly the one thing that we're not talking about. In Iraq, women and children are being used as pawns, as awful, like no one is there to take care of people in other countries, and I feel like we should be that country to be there for them in their time of need. Isn't that what America's all about?
Thank you. And then our last speaker before lunch, Mike 5.
Yep. I just feel like it goes beyond monetary compensation, mental health compensation. There needs to be programs in school. You know, we have AAAC Club, but when we had the mandatory assembly, you know, people gave AAAC Club crap for it. They were upset that it was a mandatory assembly. They were mad that they had to sit through it. If you're upset that you have to sit through a club assembly celebrating diversity, then you need to evaluate how you really feel about that club. Are you mad because you have to sit through it, or are you mad because you have to sit there and celebrate something that really represents this country? They had to sit through 300 plus years of something that they didn't ask for, that they didn't deserve. Our country was not built on freedom. Our country was stolen. Our country was built on slavery and disrespect. And so if you can't sit through an assembly that they earned, and more than earned, then you have to evaluate how you really feel about what this country was not only built on, but what people earned by what they had to go through.
Thank you. Now, here's Mr. Haley with our lunch.
All right. That was awesome. I was very worried how this was going to go in the morning, and you guys have definitely hit it out of the park. I wish we had more time. So here's the deal. From 11 to 11:30, these teachers here, Ben.
Hitting it out of the park and blowing it out of the water is definitely an understatement to how the morning went here at the 2020 Democratic Simulation Convention here at North Penn High School. An outstanding job putting it together. Mr. Haley getting ready to wrap things up in our morning session. And now, before we take our own break, where we get ready to look at some caucuses getting ready to get underway for the students and delegates, where we will check back in with some of those situations and scenarios later. We're going to recap overall what we saw in the morning session, and we have some people alongside, some correspondents here with the North Penn television crew here in the studio. But to kick it off, we're going to check it down with Spencer Halbau and Skylar Simpson, the correspondents reporting from the floor down there at the desk in the auditorium. Spencer and Skylar, as things begin to wrap up here in our morning session, my goodness, what a conversation we had going on throughout every single plank going on. We didn't even get to all of them. What were some of the biggest takeaways you had, and some of the biggest just moments you guys had from this conversation so far?
Yeah, this is a really big day. I was really proud of how our school was able to do this. I mean, some of the big things like criminal justice reform and drug policy was definitely one of the biggest things. I think we spent the most time on that. I mean, economics is a really big talking point, our economy and how we have to fix that or how we have to adjust to that. I mean, it was really just remarkable how many students were able to get up and talk and how many people were able to voice their opinion that they normally don't get up and talk. So it was really a great time to see the whole involvement of North Penn and how everyone could come together to try to make a better place.
And Skylar, we had a whole bunch of aspects getting ready and feeding into the preparation. We had from our government classes feeding into the conversations, the candidates being researched. What did you see unfold in the morning session and your biggest takeaways from this convention so far?
I definitely saw a lot of maturity from people. When you have a big delegation like this, it's kind of hard to anticipate how individual people are going to react, but every time somebody came up to the microphone, they were mature, they were respectful, they were able to get their important views across in a really powerful and mature way, and that's something I really appreciate because that led to everybody being able to really understand their views. So I think that everybody coming together to collaborate in this fantastic, mature way was one of the biggest takeaways.
All right, and before we wrap it up with you guys and get ready to see you guys later on in the afternoon, we want to hear from you, being down there on the floor, Spencer and Skylar, each of you guys. Any predictions going on in some of your biggest controversial topics that you think are swaying one way or another? I want to hear your guys' predictions, definitely.
I mean, when you look at some of the topics, especially around legalization of marijuana, that was the largest and most electric topic of the day. And the one candidate that you have seen spoken many times is Cory Booker, his campaign manager. He has been up here many times, voicing many different opinions. So it's really going to be see how well him talking is really going to be. Tom Steyer also has been talked a lot. So these candidates have really been up here discussing the different viewpoints of all the topics. So there's a lot of big topics, and let's see how it pays off for them come voting time.
In terms of the candidates, an issue that I didn't really see the managers talking a lot about was gun control. I saw more of the students vocalizing their opinions. There were a lot of opinions on it, so it would have been interesting to see the campaign managers step up a little more with that. But that just means that it leaves that issue in contention more to the students. There were a bunch of issues that if a candidate went up there, maybe they could sway the students in one way or another, but stuff like gun control, it really leaves this in the hands of the people.
All morning long, we're going to look forward to seeing you guys once again back in the afternoon where we continue our conversations and get the real voting underway. So thanks for reporting for you guys from the morning. Back here in the studio, we're going to check in now, send it over to Rachel Allmark, who's been doing a phenomenal job bringing you guys from your living room screens at home and screens throughout the classrooms, a look at the candidates and some of the faces we've been seeing around at the microphone and on the floor. Rachel, who do you have for us today?
Thanks, Eric. I have Jojo here, who's the campaign manager of Michael Bloomberg. Can you take us through what you've learned about Bloomberg and his policies?
So a big thing about Michael Bloomberg right now is that he's entered in so late. Many people think he's buying his way into the election. That may be true, but the reality of the situation is that none of that money was inherited. He was born into a middle-class family with no social connections or wealth. So he had to start from ground up, and he worked his way up by achieving the American dream. And that was by going to Johns Hopkins University, studying law and business, and then graduating, and then he got a job outside of college. He got laid off. The next day, he decided to run his own company. And that company went so well that he accumulated a net worth of $56 billion and also hired 20,000 employees as he did so. And most of his policies, in terms of like healthcare, gun control, or gun violence prevention, is many people would agree in terms of the Democratic candidates, they all have similar policies in terms of like what they want to do. But the reality of the situation is that they have to be achievable policies. Yes, you can have healthcare for all, but every Democrat agrees with that. Is how are they going to do it? That's the real question. And Michael Bloomberg has a plan. He wants to tax people tax the wealthy in order to help the people in need. And there's also the dilemma that the Democrats entrap people in dependency in order to win elections, but that cannot be further from the truth.
All right, awesome. Thanks for taking the time to interview with us. We're going to throw it back to the desk. Eric, take it away.
Thank you, Jojo Dalwadi, joining us in the studio, representing Michael Bloomberg as the campaign manager. Thank you for your input. Great job, Rachel, as well, once again. We're now going to send it over to someone we haven't got a chance to see since this morning. She's been doing an excellent job, though, running around, catching up with some of the stuff going down there on the floor. Sophie Collins is here, and she was catching up with plenty of people, putting together a package for the afternoon. Sophie, what do you have for us right now? And what's this day been like for you?
Yeah, so it's been great. It's great to see students step up and voice their opinion, and also just the atmosphere in the auditorium has been overall pretty positive with people reacting to everyone's opinions. Also, I got a chance to catch up with some students and teachers individually, which you will see in a package later on, so stay tuned for that. That's all I got, sending it back to the desk.
Thanks, Sophie. Looking forward to seeing some of you reporting on in the afternoon from the electric morning session. Now we're also going to take the chance to look over at Cassie Montgomery, one of the correspondents here with North Penn Television. She's been doing an excellent job as well, and she has something in store for you guys as well. Cassie?
Thanks so much, Eric. So earlier today, I got a chance to sit down with some campaign managers and also some other people to see what their take was on, and also to give you a sneak peek on how the voting's going to be going down this afternoon.
North Penn has held its long tradition of political simulated conventions for years. This year's 2020 Simulated Democratic Convention aims to promote civic engagement and show how the government votes on issues. As well as key speakers, the simulated DNC had chairpeople, delegate chairs, and campaign managers to represent the 14 running candidates.
My job as a campaign manager has been to investigate Amy Klobuchar's policies on different issues, write her nomination speech, and hopefully I get to give my acceptance speech today.
The convention gives students an opportunity to experience how the government votes. The voting process will be similar to how DNC delegates would vote on current issues.
Each person gets one vote within your delegation. The magic number that a candidate needs to win in order to get the nomination is 682 votes today. If, by chance, someone is not there in your delegation, then your chair will pick their vote for them, but you have to fulfill all of the votes that you are given. If you have an attendance sheet with 27 people, there must be 27 votes from your delegation.
Reporting for North Penn News, I'm Cassie Montgomery.
So that's what's going to be going on this afternoon. We're excited to see what the results are going to be. And now I'm going to throw it back to you, Eric.
Thanks, Cassie. Looking forward to seeing more of your work here in the later parts of this convention going on. That will do it here from our morning session. Thanks for sticking with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the afternoon where our voting gets underway and more of this 2020 Democratic Simulated Convention gets underway and continues to ramp up. See you guys in a little bit. I'm Eric Chesberger, and stay tuned for more.